Chapter 51, The Sixth Brother vs. the Captain. On the edge of the border island, Sasaki and Senbon Matsu were the first to arrive. They did not act rashly, but instead stared at the island with serious expressions. At this moment, the border island seemed to have just experienced a great battle. But the environment was terribly quiet, without a single sound. Senbon Matsu said tentatively, "Sasaki, how about we go up and take a look?" Even Sasaki, who was usually arrogant, felt a little scared when he saw this scene. Who can guarantee that what lies ahead is not the eve of a storm? Sasaki frowned, and his younger brothers did not dare to move. Okay, let's see what's going on first. At this time, a ship has arrived. On the boat were Runty and Peggy Wan. One male and one female. Especially that idiot, he started yelling as soon as he got off the boat. "Ah ha ha ha! Xiao Pei, come with me and kill all the invaders. Say it." He led a group of younger brothers to the island without any scruples. When Sasaki and Senbon Matsu saw this scene, their jaws almost dropped to the ground. Sasaki sighed from the bottom of his heart, "Are these two funny?" Senbon Matsu said helplessly, "I don't know, that female Tyrannosaurus dared to contradict Lord Kaido." As soon as these two arrived, another person arrived. "I am coming." Fuzfu suddenly appeared in the air and slowly descended using the moon step. "How is it now?" Before he could finish his sentence, he saw Runty rushing into the island with his men. Fu Zifu was silent. The three of them just stared at each other, and no one spoke first. Peggy Wan shook her head helplessly. "After all, she is my own sister, I have to spoil her." After saying hello to a few people, Peggy Wan followed. Several people couldn't sit still anymore and started preparing to launch an attack, ready to catch their opponents by surprise. "I said, Boss Kaido's order is to support Border Island, but now..." Fu Zifu paused here. "Now that the Border Island has fallen, should we still attack? The enemy may be very powerful." Sasaki had a gloomy face and took out a den mushi. "Let me get some information." After saying this, Sasaki swiftly attacked the search team he had arranged. "Hello? Tell me about the current intelligence on Border Island." "Hello? Lord Sasaki, after our investigation. At present, we only know that the people on the island are the core members of the Whitebeard pirates." Hearing the word backbone, both Sasaki and the other two shuddered. Fu Zifu murmured to himself, "Backbones? Backbones." Sasaki spoke again, without his usual arrogance. "I'm afraid that old man Whitebeard has invested a lot of money this time." But Fu Zifu said sadly, "After all, this island is an important island for border defense, we still have to reoccupy it. Now, I saw flags with white round patterns planted everywhere on the border island, fluttering in the wind. Humph! Attack!" Sasaki made up his mind and said casually. A group of younger brothers behind him rushed into the island. "We attack too." Fu Zifu looked at his men who had arrived late and gave orders without delay. What a thrilling war! Senbon Matsu took a deep breath. He had a premonition that this war was extraordinary and his own fate was still unclear. "Let's go too." The younger brothers behind Senbon Matsu let out a shocking roar. Profound. "Keep your voice down." Senbon Matsu's face turned dark, and he took small steps and moved towards the island little by little. Seeing this, a group of younger brothers also walked on tiptoe. This scene is very weird. On the island, Jaws and Marco were hiding in some bushes, looking very excited. Jaws' eyes kept blinking. "Did you see that? They are coming." Marco blinked in response. Jaws continued blinking frantically. "As soon as the army arrives, we will take action." Marco continued blinking and responded. Xiao Ziyai couldn't help but wonder, did he understand it or not? Hualala. The leader strode into the island with great strides, followed by a huge army, like a wave coming. Xiao Ziyai was secretly delighted. If we can wipe out a large army in one fell swoop, wouldn't victory in the war be a foregone conclusion? Ola! Diamond shine! A roar! The loud sound is the signal to take action. The members of the white group everywhere jumped up and rushed straight towards the opponent. Diamond shines! Cliff! Jaw's shining figure rushed directly towards Runty. Oh! Runty was unable to react in time and was hit hard in the abdomen by Jaws. Oh! Runty fell headfirst in the distance. "How dare you!" Peggy Wan's whole body changed instantly, her skin hardened, and she had completed her transformation into a beast. Let me show you how powerful I am. Looking at the dinosaur in front of him, Jaws was extremely excited. So you are one of the flying six that Brother Shen mentioned. Jaws exits the diamond state. Throw your fist hard. Just hit Peggy Wan. You dare to hit me. You dare to hit me. Runty jumped up and hit Kiazi in the face with a stick. Boom. Boom. Two loud noises were heard in succession. The former Jaws knocked Page Wan away with one punch. The latter Runty hit Jaws in the face with a stick. Jaws smiled, and diamonds suddenly appeared on his face, and he took the blow. Little girl, your attack is weak and powerless. After these words were spoken, Runty became furious again. What? Let's have a one-on-one duel. Xiao Pei, don't get involved. Jaws grinned and punched again. Today I will make you die miserably on the spot. After saying that, he suddenly used his headbutt to collide with it. Good chance. Sasaki saw the opportunity, drew his knife, and attacked Jaws fiercely. Your opponent is me. Marco suddenly rushed out from the bushes. A kick landed on Sasaki's right arm. Sasaki suddenly felt his center of gravity unstable and he fell headfirst to the ground. Damn it, it's Marco. Sasaki naturally knew the person in front of him. It is no exaggeration to say that this person is the second in command of the Beichuan. What Sasaki didn't know was that there was another big Buddha on this island. This person knows exactly what's happening on the entire island at all times. Humph. Marco, do you want to die here? Senbon Matsu. Senbon Matsu received the order. Rushing from a distance, drawing the samurai sword, and swinging forward. Marco smiled faintly. Reaching out and grasping the attacker's arm. With his other hand, he grasped the head of Sasaki who was lying on the ground. Throw these two people down hard. Oh! The two collided. There was an instant sound of bone breaking. It's so lively. Fu Zifu rushed forward. It instantly transformed into a tiger and rushed into the island. You guys fight your own battles, I'm just going to steal your house. Let me see what your spoils are. Thinking so, Fu Zifu rushed towards the island quickly. But as soon as he landed on the island, he saw an incredible scene. The situation on the island at this time is: Jack and Yin were tied to two large trees, with several people standing in front of them. And could the man sitting on the stone be the commander-in-chief of this war? Shen Yuan turned around and spoke softly. Don't leave once you're here. Fu Zifu gasped and quickly turned around, wanting to return the same way he came. I'm usually very hospitable. A black shadow quickly came in front of Fu Zifu, and was greeted only by a fist with a black luster. Oh! Fu Zifu was knocked out by a punch. The former just dragged the latter back with a look of disdain on his face. With this level, you dare to call yourself the Flying Six? Chapter 52. Dark Fruit. Shen Yuan nodded in agreement, using his observation haki to explore the surrounding information. Vista, go and ensure the safety of our brothers. We don't need any prisoners, except those with special abilities. Bista nodded, his face full of ferocity and cruelty. Aini took a step forward and handed over a devil fruit like offering a treasure. Master, this devil fruit might interest you. Shen Yuan looked at Enelu in confusion. He looked at the purple devil fruit again, as if it was absorbing the energy around it. This is... Shen Yuan stood up suddenly, looking very excited. Having said that, he took out the devil fruit encyclopedia and started looking through it. Several people around were puzzled, the two big bosses were even more confused. Jin asked quietly, a strong man like you is also interested in devil fruits? Of course. Shen Yuan suppressed his inner excitement. It was completely certain that what he was holding in his hand was the most evil fruit. Dark fruit. Without hesitation, Shen Yuan held the fruit in his hand. With a thought. The lines on the fruit gradually disappeared. It turned into a stream of light and flowed into Shen Yuan's body. Congratulations to the host for absorbing the nature type dark fruit and transforming it into the skill power of darkness. Now, even Jack couldn't help but exclaim. Can devil fruits be eaten like this? Jin also had an expression of disbelief, and his shock was beyond words. Shen Yuan couldn't hold it in any longer, joy surged in his heart, he grabbed Enelu's shoulders and patted him hard. You are really my lucky star. Enel felt a little embarrassed and stood there at a loss as to what to do. This fruit is the legendary dark fruit. Enelu felt even more embarrassed. But, judging from this incident, Enelu is a disciple worthy of trust. At least he had no selfish motives and handed the devil fruit to his master the first time he saw it. Enelu, I've decided to reward you handsomely. After saying this, Shen Yuan took out a booklet from his pocket. It records the method of cultivating the ultimate level of seeing and hearing color. Enelu was also very excited at this moment. I took the booklet with trembling hands. I was shocked when I opened the first page. It clearly records Shen Yuan's understanding of the color of observation, as well as slogans, cultivation methods and techniques, etc. Thank you, Master. Enelu bowed deeply to Shen Yuan. Then I walked aside and watched it carefully. Is that so? Assisting in attacks, predicting danger, and finding weaknesses. Enelu's eyes lit up. I originally had a very high talent for observation haki, and I mastered it in just 1 week. Shen Yuan stretched out his arms. A ball of dark energy suddenly appeared on the palm of his hand. It seems to be absorbing the energy of heaven and earth all the time. What an extremely violent devil fruit! He admired sincerely and looked at Fu Zifu who had fainted beside him. I heard that the dark fruit can extract the devil fruit energy from the ability user. Is that true? Dashiji adjusted her glasses and said in a deep voice, that is indeed true, but the rarer the fruit, the more energy it requires. Shen Yuan smiled slightly. Joke? Physical strength? He only exhausted his strength during the battle with Whitebeard. There was no one person he could not kill instantly with one move. As he spoke, he signaled to Tashiji to carry Fuzz 4 to the front and prepare to experiment with the ability of the fruit. This is Fu Zifu, one of the flying 6 of our beast pirates. If you kill him, Lord Kaido will not let you go. You won't let me go? I hope that little bug Kaido won't let me go. Small bug. Yin shut his mouth tightly and suppressed his anger. Come on, let me test the magic of this devil fruit. As we all know, the dark fruit has the gravitational force of a black hole, able to attract opponents uncontrollably. Thinking of this, a figure emerged in Shen Yuan's mind. All things are attracted by heaven. Saying. Shen Yuan used gravity to suck Fu Zifu into his hands. Black energy continued to erode its head. Its head was instantly squeezed and deformed. Oh! Its head exploded. Kill the plot character Fu Zifu, and your level will be raised to level 95. Reward skill point 1. Seeing this scene, everyone was amazed. Find me a piece of fruit. Enelu walked forward with a smile and took out a piece of fruit. Here you go, Master. Shen Yuan took it with a smile. Saying. His left hand drew a stream of yellow energy from Fu Zifu's body, and the yellow energy surrounded his palm. Then, Shen Yuan placed the fruit next to the energy. Attract again. Yellow energy instantly enters the fruit. I saw lines slowly appearing on the fruit, and its color gradually turned golden. That's a really nice ability. In just a few breaths, an ordinary fruit instantly turned into a legendary devil fruit. Wonderful, really wonderful. Shen Yuan smiled and handed the fruit to Enelu. This fruit is in the form of an animal-type lion. Do you want to eat it? Enelu took it, looked at it, and shook his head. Forget it. Enel shuddered with fear. Imagine what it would be like if you turned into a lion. Thinking of this, Enelu shook his head again. I heard that the previous dark fruit user was killed by the world government because of his crazy hunting of other users. Shen Yuan spoke calmly, without any regard for Yin and Jack's feelings. In fact, he was killed simply because he was not strong enough. Once the words are spoken, Shen Yuan stood up and looked at the flying 6 who were still fighting fiercely in the distance. Do not. Now it's the flying quintuplets. Tell them not to get beaten to death. Yin, how could such cruel words come out of 37 degrees mouth? Jack, damn it. It hurts so much. But neither of them dared to speak, not even to make a sound. At this moment, they only had fear of Shen Yuan. The fear that keeps growing in the hearts of these two guys. Others don't dare to kill the deputy emperor level cadre who was defeated in the battle, but Shen Yuan will really go to the battlefield if something happens. They start fighting as soon as they disagree with each other, and the victims will be left without a complete body. Jack, brother Shen Yuan. Brother Shen Yuan. I tell you. Actually, my fruit ability is rubbish. You are so powerful, you definitely won't want it, right? Shen Yuan didn't say anything. Jack, really? The more Jack spoke, the less confident he became, and cold sweat unconsciously flowed down his forehead. Jin also broke out in a cold sweat, and his trembling body proved how scared he was. Jack, yet. Shen Yuan still didn't speak. My fruit is also rubbish, I also. Before he finished speaking, Shen Yuan waved his hand. Don't worry, I'm not that interested in animal-type devil fruits. You are my important bargaining chips for blackmailing Kaido, why would I kill you? After hearing this, the two of them finally breathed a sigh of relief. Come on, Dashiki, untie the two of you and bring you some food. Don't die here. Dashiki nodded and started to do as she was told. Yin and Jack looked at each other, both of them looking at each other in disbelief. Even. And a little bit, touching. Jin endured the pain and ate the food in front of him with tears in his eyes. This scene seemed to have returned to a few years ago. The moment when I met Kaido. To be honest, you are an orphan of a minority ethnic group and you deserve to be protected. Why is the world government looking for you? Yin's hand, which was holding the food, suddenly froze, and the words instantly brought back his memories. It can be seen that Jin is very sensitive about this topic. Seeing that he was unwilling to say more, Shen Yuan began to ask and answer his own questions. Because of the navy? Because of the celestial dragons? Or because of the world government? Shen Yuan shook his head and couldn't help laughing. Chapter 53. White Hot. Fierce fighting took place behind the island. Marco responded to Sasaki and Senbon Matsu's attacks very calmly, as if he was playing with two little kids. I say, you two, can you show some real skills? Sasaki bit his lower lip, and immediately transformed his whole body into a triceratops. Saying. The sharp horns on Sasaki's forehead suddenly grew longer, and his body grew several times larger. Senbon Matsu followed closely behind. The neck suddenly became longer and a long tail suddenly grew behind it. It was actually a diplodocus. The two giant beasts attacked Marco together. That's awesome. Marco laughed loudly, and his whole body was instantly covered with ice blue flames. Second form. Extremely cold blue flame. Say it. Marco was covered in dark blue flames and stood high in the sky, looking extremely domineering. Blue flame. Flame ring. A huge pillar of fire fell from the sky, freezing everything around it. Boom. Crack. Two voices came one after the other. The former froze the two beasts on the spot. But the latter suddenly broke the ice and attacked Marco quickly. Helicopterosaur. The pelvis in Sasaki's neck was seen spinning at high speed, gradually flying off the ground, and its speed suddenly increased several times. Storm headbutt. Senbon Matsu's long neck was covered with armed color domineering and attacked Marco. A triceratops and a diplodocus, how amazing! Marco's figure flashed and nimbly dodged the headbutt. A flying kick landed heavily on Sasaki's head, breaking one of his dragon horns. One attack landed, and another followed. Rose petals, raining down from the sky. The petals flying all over the sky pierced towards the neck of the triceratops, scratching dozens of bloody wounds on its huge dragon body. Vomit. Sasaki spat out a mouthful of blood and his face turned pale as paper. Look at me. At this time, Senbon Matsu shook his head. His whole body was filled with domineering aura again, his eyes revealed murderous intent, and he just stood there gathering strength and waiting for the opportunity. Marco, is he stupid? Vista, not sure, but now is a good time to attack. You have to say it before charging an attack, for fear that others won't know. Senbon Matsu was stunned and looked at the two of them suspiciously. How? Only one person left? That. Thinking of this, Senbon Matsu couldn't think any more. Marco grabbed its huge neck. Suddenly threw it towards the big tree next to it. Vista. Vista understood instantly and immediately abandoned Sasaki. The two swords in his hands were suddenly covered with armament color, and then slowly attached with a layer of pink power. Dual blade style. Ending the rebirth. One knife means new life, one knife means the end. The pink slash flashed gorgeously. Then there was a puff sound, and two bloody marks were left on Senbon Matsu's neck. I saw his body gradually shrinking and blood spurting out of his mouth. I'm here to send you to hell. Marco was about to make the final move but was stopped by Vista. The commander-in-chief of the Flying Six specifically asked for someone alive. Marco nodded in understanding and looked at the battle over at Jaw's end. At this moment, Jaw's entire body has turned into diamond. The battle with the opponent is in full swing. Boom! 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 The sound of bodies colliding continued to be heard. The two glanced at jaws. Except for a few cracks in the diamond, there is nothing unusual. Look at Peggy Yuan and Runty again. The former dragon's body was covered in bruises, and it was constantly gasping for breath. The latter had many red envelopes on his head and even a few tears falling from the corners of his eyes. At this time, Peggy Yuan's body flew uncontrollably towards the depths of the woods. Whoosh! Bang! 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 Peggy Yuan broke several large trees in succession. Finally, Shen Yuan suddenly grabbed his head. An infinite dark energy madly squeezed Peggy Yuan's body, instantly degenerating it. At this moment, he was vomiting blood from his mouth and his whole body was unable to move. It seems to be controlled by a mysterious force. How about my latest trick? Shen Yuan smiled faintly and threw the unconscious Peggy Yuan aside. He used the same trick again to lure Runty here again. Asshole! Let me go! Let me go! Runty has returned to normal size under the influence of the dark power. I tried my best to resist this force, but it had no effect at all. The power of the earth. Attract. As Shen Yuan spoke his moves, the gravitational output power increased. A bunch of short sticks made of gravel and sawdust covered with armed colors. Runty was nailed directly to a thick tree. Puff! Runty spat out a mouthful of blood, but was still tightly held by gravity and stuck to the tree. Even so, he still had a face full of resentment. If our boss Kaido knew about this intruder, he would definitely. Shen Yuan stood in front of Runty with his hands in his pockets, and black sticks hung on Runty's side. Shen Yuan showed a playful smile. If you say one more word, you will have another black stick on you. Runty shut up instantly. Runty fell to the ground, the black stick on his back faded away quietly, but he also lost his ability to fight. But his pair of resentful eyes were still staring at Shen Yuan. Shen Yuan snapped his fingers. One after another, the black sticks pierced Runty's body. What? Suddenly, screams came from the depths of the forest. He walked out from the depths of the forest and looked at the other two. This is Sasaki, right? Your fruit is rubbish. Your fruit is the worst of all garbage. I might as well just bury you too. Sasaki and Senbon Matsu struggled to stand up. He looked miserable, with hideous wounds all over his body. What do you want to do? Senbon Matsu remained calm and began to negotiate with Shen Yuan. What do I want to do? Shen Yuan was in a good mood and wanted to experiment with his ability to come up with sudden ideas. Listening to their rapid breathing, a large amount of gravel and wood chips flew into the air. Even the blood and swords of many beast crew members all gathered in the sky. What? Suffocate to death, stab to death, or be crushed to death, choose one. Sasaki gritted his teeth, kneeling on the ground with trembling thighs. Even the arrogant prince could not say a word at this moment. Then go to die. Say it. Streams of blood, gravel, and wood chips flew rapidly toward Sasaki. Slowly wrap it up and swallow it. Sasaki kept begging for mercy, but the speed of the restraints was far beyond his imagination. In just a few seconds, his entire body was blocked and he gradually suffocated to death. It looks like a mummy, as if it had just been unearthed. Kill the plot character Sasaki, level up to level 96, get bonus skill point 1. After killing Sasaki, he turned his attention to Senbon Matsu. What about you? Senbon Matsu took a deep breath and spoke calmly. I knew this trip would never come back, so just kill me. Shen Yuan curled his lips, but looked at the samurai sword tightly held in Senbon Matsu's hand. Your knife. Senbon Matsu then threw the knife over, looking nonchalant. This sword is one of the best and sharpest swords, named Bishu. Shen Yuan was stunned. Are you still a little bit shy? Before you die, I will show you what the supreme sword is. After finishing speaking, slowly pull out the heaven swallowing horizontal. Every time an inch is pulled out, a group of restless air leaps wildly. Call out. The cold blade is unsheathed. Even if it is not deliberately covered with domineering aura, it is already wrapped in armed color. The black mist and dark energy intertwined and alternated with each other, the cold light of the blade was fully revealed, and the breath released alone was enough to intimidate the opponent. Senbon Matsu was surprised. This is really shocking. Chapter 54. Angry Kaido. Senbon Matsu's face was flushed, and he didn't look like he had been seriously injured at all. Does this sword have a sword spirit? Shen Yuan asked doubtfully. Sword spirit? Seeing Shen Yuan's doubts, Senbon Matsu, adhering to the spirit of a swordsmith, explained to him attentively. The so-called demon sword is a sword that has demonic energy in it. The demonic energy is the symbol of the sword soul, and the strength of each demon sword's sword soul is different. Senbon Song's face turned red with excitement, and his eyes were burning with passion as he looked at Tunshan. Can you tell me the name of this knife? Swallow the sky. Tunshan, it's Tunshan. Senbon Song muttered to himself, and at this moment his face looked like that of an avid gambler. Can you tell me what kind of power your knife can sense? Maybe it's the power of death. Death? The power of death. Senbon Song muttered to himself, and finally, as if he had discovered something incredible, his eyes sparkled again. Sir, can you unleash your strongest slash for me to see? Shen Yuan was helpless. He knows his sword well, which he used a few years ago. First of all, this ancient oriental sword from an unknown captain. After verification, it was later found to be a horizontal sword, a sword from the mysterious East. Secondly, why is it a demon sword? Shen Yuan actually didn't know the answer to this question. When I first got this knife, there was already a hint of black mist moving around the blade. Maybe it's because I often use the power of demigod in battle. His own sword was also influenced by the evil spirit and turned into a demonic sword? Since awakening the power of the giant god, he could clearly sense that the demonic energy of his sword was growing stronger and stronger. So to speak, if I fight Whitebeard, Shen Yuan released his demonic energy without restriction and entered the state of death himself. Every sword hurts the soul. He can definitely hack Whitebeard to death with a single blow. The kind that can't be saved. This knife is still full of doubts. The most important thing is the soul of this sword. Is it the god of death? Let's make a bold assumption. Is the sword spirit of this sword the Yan Luo from the mysterious East? Thinking of this, just swing the knife. A sharp slash roared into the sea. The entire sea surface was divided into two, and it took a long time for it to return to calm. Senbon Matsu looked at everything that was happening before his eyes in horror. This power is truly astonishing. Have you figured out how to die? Senbon Matsu shook his head and said urgently. Sir, can I join your group? I am actually a swordsmith. My dream in this life is to create a top-notch sword like the one in your hand. Well, in that case, you can live. Shen Yuan turned around and looked up at the sky. What is coming will always come. Shen Yuan whispered again. Marco, you guys take this traitor back to the tent and be alert all around. Don't let the old Cao's men take advantage of you. Marco responded, grabbed the Senbanamatsu and disappeared. In a moment, the sky is clouded over. Lightning and thunder cause strange phenomena in heaven and earth. A giant green dragon suddenly appeared slowly in the air. Hot breath. A scorching breath suddenly came. Whoosh whoosh. Shen Yuan was not in a hurry. He manipulated the gravity of the black hole and easily controlled Peggy 1 to stand in front of him, and all the hot breath bombarded Peggy 1. Peggy 1's eyes were lifeless at this moment, as if her soul had been sucked out. Boom! The hot breath roared and drowned the two of them. Peggy 1's body instantly turned charred and kept emitting steam. It seemed that she was deader than dead. Kill the plot character Peggy 1, level up to level 97, get skill point 1. Shen Yuan was stunned for a moment. Wasn't this killed by Kaido? 2. If I don't block his attack, he can't die. According to human principles, this kid killed himself. Shen Yuan threw the body away, clenched his fists, and gave a standard smile. Kaido. If you do this again, I'll kill this idiot too, okay? Saying. Shen Yuan looked at Runty who was dying beside him. Kaido transformed into a human form and fell heavily to the ground. Looking at the corpses on the ground, Fu Zifu, who was bleeding from all 7 orifices, and the burnt page 1 in his hand instantly made him furious. Damn brat! Where are Jack and Yin? Say it! He held a mace in his hand, and his body was instantly covered with hard scales. It seems that a war is inevitable. Marco muttered. At this moment, the white group, Enelu and others were standing far away from the two of them, watching the battlefield all the time. Do you think Kaido will die here today? Vista licked his tongue and said frantically. Jack and Yin looked at everyone and said nothing. Now my whole body is shackled with sea stone. Dare not say. Can't say either. Marco smiled slightly and said meaningfully. Hey! The commander-in-chief once said that he didn't even use his full strength when fighting with the old man. If Dad hears this, he will come over and beat you up. Xiao Ziyai chuckled foolishly, but he was very excited inside. The battle between the commander-in-chief and Kaido is even more exciting than playing poker. At this time, Kaido and Shen Yuan stood facing each other. Neither party was in a hurry to take action. Instead, they looked at each other, as if they were waiting for something. Yin and that tusk hui? I'll tell you if you win. Kaido's veins popped up all over his body, and his anger surged again. What did you say? Kid. Are you talking to me? Asshole. I am the Emperor of the Sea. What? If you dare, breathe out another hot breath. Kaido took a deep breath, anger spreading throughout his body. The angrier he got, the calmer Kaido became, and he began to negotiate with Shen Yuan. Kid, hand over Jack and Yin, and I'll let you go, how about that? Let me go. Shen Yuan saw that Kaido did not take action. Use gravity to attract Runty into your hand. The big hand grasped Runty's skull tightly. With a little force, a crisp sound of bone cracking was heard. Crack! This is not over yet. He pulled out the tuncheon with his other hand and placed it across Runty's neck. What are you doing? Kaido didn't finish his words. The long knife cut through Runty's throat without any hindrance. A handful of blood spurted out from the throat. Runty covered his throat with an unbelievable look on his face, and fell to the ground and died after a while. Kill the plot character Runty, level up to 98, get bonus skill point 1. What? Are you going to let me go? Shen Yuan smiled disdainfully, with a hint of sarcasm in his brows. Kaido, Macaberas. 4 of the Flying Six died, 1 was missing, and 2 of the 3 big bosses were captured. Now there are only 2 ways. The first one is to kill the other person. The second is to defeat the opponent. You bastard, I'm going to kill you today. Kaido suddenly rose from the sky and flew high into the sky. An incomparable aura instantly spread out in all directions. Shen Yuan felt the overwhelming murderous aura. Still as a mountain, he just stood there steadily, waiting for Kaido's attack. You ignorant little brat, I'm going to bury you here today. Saying. A gust of wind carrying a tremendous force blew out violently again, aiming directly at Shen Yuan. Bad wind. The strong wind destroyed the surrounding scenery violently. All trees, boulders, and even small mountains were crushed to pieces. Everything within sight was swallowed up by this fierce gale. Chapter 55 The Power of the Giant God. The whole island fell into silence. This bad wind shattered the surrounding scenery and stirred up a lot of smoke and dust. Kaido transformed into a human form and fell to the ground. Although he was arrogant and domineering, he stared at the thick fog in front of him with a look of suspicion. Little devil! How long are you going to play dead? The smoke and dust dispersed. A black shadow suddenly accelerated and rushed towards Kaido's body. Kaido raised his mace and shouted angrily, "You overestimate your own abilities." Thunder! Gossip! The mace was wrapped in red lightning and attacked quickly. Boom! The mace wrapped in the domineering aura, accompanied by a strong wind, suddenly collided with Shen Yuan's iron fist. Boy, is this all your strength? Shen Yuan was knocked back several steps by this attack and couldn't help vomiting blood. Trigger the characteristics Scarlet Demon and Undead King Kong. Shen Yuan slowly raised his head, a cold scarlet light flashing in his eyes. At this moment, even the previous wounds were instantly wiped out. Kaido! Can't you hit harder? Kaido was furious. It has transformed into the most suitable state for fighting the Dragon Man form. Descend the third world. Lead to Naraku. Kaido leaped high. The mace in his hand emitted a faint golden light and smashed to the ground with an unmatched momentum. Boom! The earth cracked and rocks flew everywhere. But what Kaido couldn't believe was, the gravel and soil did not fly around, but continued to stick to Kaido's dragon body. It's really troublesome. Kaido was extremely uncomfortable at this time, and his whole body was covered with garbage. Bones, banana peels, apple cores, etc. were all stuck to its side. Little tricks! Kaido roared, sending all the garbage flying. Swing the bat again! Fu Fang! Detectivin! The weapon instantly blasted towards the caster of this technique. Oh! Kaido's eyes widened. Shen Yuan appeared beside Kaido at some point. A whip kick wrapped in black and white lightning kicked him in the stomach like a dragon crossing the river. This is not over yet. Shen Yuan took advantage of Kaido's momentary sluggishness, flashed in front of Kaido again, and kicked out with another powerful whip kick. A huge force exploded through his body, and Kaido leaned back, with strands of blood spurting out of his mouth. Nevertheless, Kaido counterattacked instantly. Almost instantly, one of his hands suddenly grabbed Shen Yuan's calf. Twist your waist and abdomen, lean forward and backward. Throw it heavily to the ground. Boom! Shen Yuan fell heavily to the ground, creating a deep pit. Shen Yuan suddenly felt his internal organs churning, but the physique of the immortal King Kong healed his injuries instantly, making the pain disappear again. Kaido muttered to himself, "Isn't this kid afraid of death?" He stood up again, rushed forward regardless of anything, and kicked Kaido in the abdomen with a Spartan kick. Vomit! Kaido was kicked straight into a C shape. Just one step. Shen Yuan repeated the previous action. Another whip kick was sent towards Kaido. Enough! Kaido's eyes turned red. Dazzling golden light burst out from all over his body, and red lightning covered his body. Thunder! Gossip! Oh! Shen Yuan was blown away by the mace and fell heavily to the ground in the distance. That's it! Change people! He stood up again, and unparalleled strength burst out from his body. Come again, come again! His figure flashed in front of Kaido again, and a fist covered with top-level 2-color domineering aura blasted out again. The two figures intertwined, one black and one gold, constantly shuttling across the battlefield. Woo! Kaido cried out in pain as he was hit in the hip by a punch. At this moment, he only felt extreme pain all over his body. So far, the two had fought for at least dozens of rounds. Kaido was covered with wounds, but Shen Yuan was not hurt at all. You little brat! Can't you be killed? As soon as Kaido finished speaking, a dark slash carried the surrounding rubble away with the wind. Draw your sword! Black flash! Shen Yuan held the Tian-swallowing sword and attacked fiercely. Chiang! Kaido raised his stick to block again. I am the Four Emperors Kaido. The slashing attack was instantly broken up, and it turned into a dragon body and flew into the sky. A green dragon was hovering in the sky, staring at Shen Yuan with its big scarlet eyes. The power of the earth. Attract. Extremely strong gravitational forces kept pulling at Kaido, and Kaido just felt a headache. I am the body of Akela. Gravity? It doesn't work on me. Saying. Its body was slowly attracted by gravity. This moment, Kaido suddenly felt that he could no longer control the flow of his power. It felt like being in a black hole, as if an invisible hand was holding me tightly. Kaido was puzzled and turned around to look. A giant black hand actually grabbed his tail. Shen Yuan smiled. Life or death is unpredictable. Darkness incarnates. Binding hands. As soon as this voice came out, Kaido's dragon body shook violently. The power of death. Liberate. The voice just fell. Shen Yuan's whole body began to change. The power of the giant god was stimulated from himself and slowly formed a huge image of the god of death. Activate the characteristic giant power. The effective time lasts for a quarter of an hour. The whole body of the Grim Reaper is dark black, and his eyes seem to contain tens of thousands of ghosts. This is not over yet. Shen Yuan roared, armor fusion. The dark energy around him once again gathered on the god of death. Huge dark arms continued to emerge one after another. The death god that enveloped Shen Yuan at this time was dozens of meters tall. Compared to him, Kaido is just a little bug. Okay, enough of the appetizers. Can we have the main course now? At this moment, Shen Yuan was like a god judging all living beings. Adieu. Another huge black arm easily grabbed Kaido's dragon body. The dark energy continued to squeeze and hurt Kaido's body. The power of death continues to erode Kaido's soul. At this moment, Kaido was exhausted both physically and mentally, and the serious injuries on his body made it impossible for him to resist at all. I just feel my soul is being eroded. Unprecedented pain spread throughout the body. At this moment Kaido couldn't utter a word, and his entire dragon face turned blue and purple. You are known as the strongest creature in the sea, land, and air, but how strong are you? After these words were spoken, Kaido took a breath of cold air. I'll give you a chance. If you kowtow to me now, I'll spare your life. How about it? At this moment, Shen Yuan's voice was like a vengeful spirit eroding Kaido's mind. Even Kaido was terrified at this moment. Kaido gritted his teeth and forced out a word, but he couldn't utter the following words for a long time. Shen Yuan was curious and slowly withdrew the power of death. Go ahead. Kaido gasped for breath, his chest rising and falling violently. All the faults are on me. But can you please let them go and just kill me? At this time, Jin endured the pain and flew towards Kaido, helped Kaido up, and said tremblingly. Lord Shen Yuan, if you want to kill someone, just kill me. Please let Boss Kaido go. Kaido shouted angrily, asshole. Who asked you to beg for mercy for me? But Jin remained unmoved. Right now. Another idiot appeared. Please let them go and kill me. Jack half knelt in front of the two men, looking like he was paying tribute. Kaido. Ember. Jack is in front, Kaido and Jin are behind. The scene at this moment is very strange. Kaido, let's do this. I propose a condition. As long as you agree to it, I will let you go. Is that okay? Kaido nodded slightly. He understood that he did not have the capital to challenge Shen Yuan now. I want 500 kilograms of sea stone. 500, Jin, what unit is Jin? Shen Yuan closed his eyes, changed his mind and said. Give me 10 tons of sea stone, and cede half of your territory to the Whitebeard pirates. Also, I want one more person. After hearing this, Kaido's anger spread throughout his body again. 10 tons? Sea stone? Do you think it's the cabbages sold cheaply on the street? Kid. It's impossible to produce so much sea stone in such a short time. I can agree to the rest of the conditions, but, who is this person you want? Black Charcoal Snake. Kaido breathed a sigh of relief, as he was glad that it wasn't one of his key personnel. I promise you all this, but I can only send 1 ton of sea stone now. Okay, within 1 year, 10 tons of sea stone must be delivered to me, otherwise, ha 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 ha. Kaido gritted his teeth and nodded heavily. Face the reality, weakling. Say it. He turned and left, his figure gradually disappearing in front of the 3 people. Chapter 56, The Second Ability. The Power of Candlelight. After Shen Yuan left, the 3 of them were as if pardoned. Jin and Kaido transformed into dragon forms and flew away quickly with Jack. I don't want to stay here for even a second. And Shen Yuan also reaped a lot. Let's not talk about the dark fruit first. The skill points gained from this operation are enough to keep Shen Yuan smiling for half a month. Defeat the plot character Kaido and level up to level 100. The extra level is converted into skill point 1. After reaching the final level, all subsequent levels will be converted into skill points. Get the final reward. Mysterious Devil Fruit 1. Say it. A breeze blew by, and a golden devil fruit appeared in Shen Yuan's palm. Shen Yuan sincerely exclaimed, this fruit is amazing. Without even a second thought, he absorbed the devil fruit into his body. Obtain fruit skills, the power of candlelight. After taking a look at the introduction of the power of candlelight, he couldn't help but smack his lips in amazement. Candlelight. One of the 2 saints of Lianji, the sun god. It is also affectionately called the holy beast. Thinking of this, Shen Yuan yelled at the top of his lungs, Kaido, I'm your father. That's right. The 4 divine beasts were indeed bred by the most Yang Zuzeo and the most Yan Yueying. Zuzeo, one of the 2 saints, has a terrifying temperature that rivals that of the sun. Destroy the heat. His chest swelled. A large amount of golden light and gust of wind suddenly gushed out towards the broken battlefield in the distance. Whoosh! The extremely high temperature hot breath vaporizes everything wherever it goes. The surrounding environment even became hotter, which made Marco and others feel more stressed. Marco couldn't believe it, no way? Is this heat breath? Bad wind. A wave of unrest, a wave of up. The hurricane roared again, blowing a large area of sea into the sky and evaporating it instantly. The wind force is still increasing. Beast transformation. Shen Yuan experimented many times, but ultimately failed to transform into a beast. It seems we can only look forward to subsequent development. Wiping his mouth, Shen Yuan slowly turned around, looking very excited. As soon as I took a step, I felt unstable, and it felt like there was a sun inside my body. The high temperature burned Shen Yuan's internal organs, causing his blood to boil and the pain to be unbearable. It seems there are still side effects. Other than that, Shen Yuan maxed out the speed enhancement. So far, Shen Yuan is surrounded by perfection, feeling the incomparable violent atmosphere. At this moment, Shen Yuan's thoughts drifted away. Can he fight against the 5 elder stars now? Without further ado, there have been huge changes in the speed column. Void body, 100/100, ignoring collision volume, like a walker wandering in the void, the speed is greatly enhanced. Ignore collision size? What means? Shen Yuan thought carefully. Familiar characters gradually appeared in my mind. Void Walker, Kassadin? So am I a ghost now? Once again, allocate the remaining 3 skill points to the power of darkness, making the use of black hole gravity smoother. Looking at Marco and his group, they all stood there in a daze, with their mouths opened so wide that even a ball could be stuffed in them. From the time the battle began until now, this fighting style seems to be a joke, a mockery. It really refreshed their 3 views. Why are you looking at me like that? Go and clean up the battlefield for me. Say it. He turned around and walked away, with his hands behind his back. And on the other side, the entire battle was recorded by Morgause. Incomparable excitement instantly filled Morgan's heart. Big news, this is big news. You know what? When I saw Kaido coming just now, I felt that something big was going to happen today. The fortune teller told me that I am a general whose success depends on the sacrifice of thousands of soldiers. But I won't admit it. I will never accept my fate in this life. I control my own life. Well said. Shen Yuan clapped and walked forward, looking at Morgans with a smile. Oh? Mr. Shen Yuan? What can I do for you? Morganus was completely fearless and had no intention of retreating. I just hope you can report today's events truthfully, that's all. Morgan smiled slightly and bowed to Shen Yuan. Don't worry, you'll see what you want to see in tomorrow's headlines. Shen Yuan nodded with satisfaction. Patted Morgans on the shoulder. Would you be willing to come to my humble abode for a chat? Morgans nodded and followed Shen Yuan without thinking. The two came to the interior of the border island. Marco and others are counting the treasures. Seeing the commander coming, they all greeted him and looked at Morgans at the same time. This is the famous president of the Economic News Agency. Marco nodded slightly in respect. We have something to discuss. Although the war has been temporarily suspended, don't forget that the Sao is still watching closely. Everyone agreed and went about their own business. The two entered the tent and sat down. 2 cups of tea were brought up by Khalifa. Mr. President, some of my abilities cannot be made public for the time being. They will be my capital in fighting against the 5 elders. Morgans nodded after hearing this, but he didn't care. He had seen the Revolutionary Army before, and he was not at all moved when he saw people who wanted to rebel against the world government again. So what ability do you want to reveal? I recently obtained the dark fruit, and I'm a swordsman who uses a sword. Morgans understood and took out a small notebook to write down the information. Mr. President, we will annex half of Kaido's territory and continue the war. Morgan's eyes lit up. Big news, this is big news. Its bird arms kept recording in the little notebook, and they all wrote out phantoms. In addition, as the defeated Kaido will present us with 10 tons of sea stone. Morgans continued writing without any pause. Besides that, Mr. Shen Yuan, do you have any needs? This is Morganus's veiled question. This question is equivalent to opening a back door for Shen Yuan. I attributed my guilt for starting the war to the pressure from the 5 elders. Morgans nodded. He would have done the same thing even if Shen Yuan hadn't told him. Okay. See you later, then. After seeing Morgans off, Shen Yuan stood at the door of the tent and breathed a sigh of relief. It's safe. In fact, Morgans was the person Shen Yuan contacted in advance, and this was also part of Shen Yuan's plan. Simultaneously, the news of Kaido's defeat spread like wildfire. Not only within the Whitebeard pirates. The same is true within the Beasts pirates. On the Ghost Island, Kaido was lying on a large stone slab in pain, groaning constantly. How did Boss Kaido get beaten into this state? Black Maria looked at the weak Kaido in front of her anxiously, with shock in her eyes. That's good. The opponent stopped. Otherwise, Boss Kaido won't survive today. Yin's tone was very gloomy. 5 of the Flying 6 have died, and you are the only one left. Jack also spoke gloomily, his injuries were no more serious than Kai's. Who is the opponent? Is it the old man with Whitebeard who took action? Black Maria still couldn't believe it. Yin sneered. Do you think Whitebeard alone can beat us like this? After hearing this, Black Maria looked confused. It's the recently famous death god Shen Yuan. Black Maria's expression changed again, and she was filled with confusion. Shen Yuan? Isn't he a little devil? Black Maria still had an expression of disbelief on her face. He seems to know a lot of things we don't know, and his strength is unquestionable. Jin continued gloomily. We paid with half of our territory, 10 tons of sea stone, and even, the life of the general of Wano country. The black charcoal snake. Black Maria's expression instantly turned into annoyance when she heard that. Well, we need to discuss who will be the next general of Wano. Chapter 57. Great victory. What? Fine, fine. Whitebeard hung up the den mushi excitedly and stood up. You didn't disappoint me. You are really my good deputy. Above the sea. The Moby Dick docked at Border Island. There were several members of the White group stationed on the island, and when they saw their main ship approaching, they became excited. One of the sentries ordered, "Go and report to the commander." The other one received the order and ran into the tent immediately. Gulala! Gulala! What a great victory! All the members of the White group rushed into the island with joyful smiles on their faces. Their deputy captain, Shen Yuan, the god of death, defeated Kaido and seized half of Kaido's territory. At this moment, their faces are full of light. Then again, Bian Shao Island is an isolated island. The island is not small in size and is rich in forest and mineral resources. At this moment, a group of White group members are carrying out reconstruction work. It's Daddy! It's Daddy! Everyone became excited, but they did not finish the work at hand. Keep going, my sons, you are excellent. Whitebeard complimented him a few times before turning around and seeing the body of the Flying Six hanging by the side of the tent. Whitebeard was stunned. So cruel? Come in, old man. A word came out from the tent, and Whitebeard was stunned for a moment. Goo-la-la-la. The captains entered the tents one after another. The tents looked very different at this time. The originally bare floor is now covered with very luxurious minerals, and many devil fruits are placed in a corner of the room. Little devil! You've got quite a catch. Whitebeard leaned forward slightly and sat upright on a chair, thrusting Kusunakiri heavily into the ground. Fuck! That's the floor! That's the floor! Shen Yuan said with a look of heartache. Gulala! Kid, I heard that you defeated Kaido. I'm so excited. When Shen Yuan heard this, his face suddenly changed, as if he had thought of something bad. When Whitebeard saw Shen Yuan's expression, he couldn't help but frown slightly. What happened to you? Fine. Whitebeard didn't care and continued to talk to himself. Do you know a guy called Kojiki Odin? Whitebeard was stunned. How come you know everything? Not only do I know that, I also know that he is a naive, silly, Jolai daimyo. Whitebeard and the captains were shocked. Shockingly, Shen Yuan's evaluation of Odin is so low. Why do you say that? Whitebeard's face suddenly turned gloomy and he looked very angry. I have heard about the events in Wano country. It is difficult for me to comment on Kojiki Odin. Two blue veins popped out on Whitebeard's forehead. Why do you say that? When these words were spoken for the second time, the atmosphere in the entire tent dropped to freezing point. All the captains around felt the pressure, sensing the powerful aura spreading in all directions. Kojiki Odin? A self-righteous loser who doesn't care about the country. His sons and his retainers were complete failures. Compared to Kojiki's family, I still admire Kaido's family more. Shen Yuan ignored the change in Whitebeard's expression and spoke again calmly. In pursuit of that ridiculous prophecy, he left his country behind. Didn't he understand that the country of Wano could only be successfully established with his help? Because he went out to sea, most people died instead of getting into trouble. Shen Yuan took a heavy step and landed on the newly laid floor, causing a dent in the ground. Let's not talk about that loser first, let's talk about you. Whitebeard. The strongest man in the world, Edward Newgate. Is that how magnanimous you are? We have been friends for a few months, after all. So you want to fight me? Shen Yuan kept talking, and every word was heart-wrenching. Yes, I can indeed kill Kaido, but can killing him guarantee the founding of Wano country? Can you guarantee that there won't be another Kurozumi Orakai or another Kaido? Speaking of which, Shen Yuan's emotions instantly rose, and Tunshin also began to move strangely, as if responding to his master. He hasn't finished talking yet. He has his own set of sophistry with his own logic. What he thinks is right, and what he thinks is wrong is wrong. Is this the will that should be inherited? If this can make one invincible, why would the Revolutionary Army revolutionize NMLGB? Just practice your eloquence. After hearing these words, many captains suddenly woke up and realized that Shen Yuan was right. This is distorted values. But Yi Zhang in the corner clenched his fists, extremely angry, wanting to explode but not daring to. It has to be said that he was afraid of Shen Yuan's strength, his influence, and more importantly, his prestige. Dad. Marco spoke in a low voice, fearing that the two great gods would burst into a war. Whitebeard stretched out his big hand to interrupt. Raise your head slightly. Indeed, you are right, but he is my brother after all. Stop. Shen Yuan interrupted Whitebeard and was speechless. You have a guilty brother, so go and atone for your brother's sin. As soon as this word comes out, the whole place was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. How do you want me to atone for my sins? Whitebeard spoke gloomily. Go to hell. Cold. Ruthless. Ruthless. Whitebeard was speechless for a moment. Yes. Shen Yuan's words did wake him up, but he was Whitebeard after all. The strongest man in the world. Whitebeard, judging a person clearly is not based on first sight, you have to rely on this. As he spoke, Shen Yuan tapped his temple. After completing a series of moves, Shen Yuan walked out of the tent with his confidants, leaving Whitebeard alone in the tent in a mess. Walk slowly outside. Shen Yuan sighed heavily. How are the retainers of the Kojiki family doing? Lightning flashed quietly, and a figure and a face slowly emerged. Master, come closer. Shen Yuan leaned his ear closer. Based on my research, I can infer that the Warren Murasaki of Wano country might be Odin's daughter Hiri Kojiki. Shen Yuan nodded and confirmed the whereabouts of Kojiki Hiri. Master, I couldn't find any trace of the son of the Kojiki family. Got it. Do you know where the other retainers are staying? Joan nodded and took out an intelligence form from her pocket. He took the information and unfolded it. Sure enough, I saw a familiar figure. A boy. Shen Yuan smiled and continued to look through the information in his hand. Do you know the 9 red scabbards? Enelu and the others were stunned, not knowing what was going on. They are all men who inherited Odin's will and are evildoers who will be infamous for eternity. With this remark, Enelu instantly became eager to fight and was eager to give it a try. However, we still need to discuss this matter. After collecting the information and throwing it to Khalifa, Shen Yuan shook his head. How about it, Whitebeard, do you want to come out and fight? The white-bearded man in the tent was still gloomy, but his expression had eased a lot. Little devil! Forget it today. I'm not in a good mood. Come and have a drink with me. Humph! Shen Yuan snorted coldly, whispered a few words to Enelu and others, and walked into the tent. The others looked at each other, nodded, and disappeared. It seems you still can't let it go. Shen Yuan spoke calmly, still without a trace of emotion. Forget it. I won't get involved in this matter. I'll just pretend I didn't see it. Whitebeard returned to normal and laughed. Gulala. Let's have a party. The gloomy atmosphere just now was swept away in an instant, and everyone was extremely excited. There's a party. Chapter 58, Black Charcoal Snake. Today. It is a day worth celebrating for everyone in the white group. Because they obtained a large amount of treasure and territory. Oh. I'm raising fish. Drink it quickly. Don't panic. Let me take my time. Everyone at the banquet was very happy and drank wine with abandon. Shen Yuan is no exception. At this moment, he was holding a glass of rum and taking sips of it. Gulala. Little devil. Why are you acting like a woman? Shen Yuan said nothing, staring at the sky in the distance with a calm look. Whitebeard was curious and looked over, but found nothing. Gulala. Stop being so suspicious. Without me, this family will fall apart sooner or later. Kaido's business is not over yet. The world government is still watching secretly, the navy admirals are still trying to encircle and suppress, don't forget there is still a Sao. Whitebeard was almost sober and shook his head. Will they launch a sneak attack? Whitebeard asked puzzledly. Possible. End of speech. He drank the wine in the glass, stood up, dusted himself off, turned around and walked towards the broken battlefield. Where are you going? Whitebeard also stood up and followed quickly. Come yet. Shen Yuan looked at the sky and said something inexplicably. Whoosh. A black shadow came closer and landed heavily in front of Shen Yuan in the distance. My lord, this is the man you wanted. Saying. The black shadow threw the charcoal snake in his hand and it fell at Shen Yuan's feet. Well done, I have another suggestion. The black shadow was stunned, took off his black robe, and revealed his true face. What do you wish to do, my lord? Jin was extremely nervous at this moment. If Shen Yuan changed his mind and left him here, he would have no choice. Don't worry, I'm not going to kill you. Shen Yuan glanced at the dying black charcoal snake and spoke again slowly. Allow me to enter the territory of Wano country, and I will not cause you any more trouble after this. Jin was stunned for a moment, then nodded. Of course, you have to keep your promise. Excuse me, what are you going to do in Wano country? Whitebeard finally understood what was going on. Without saying a word, he turned and walked towards the camp. Continue to hunt down the Kojiki family. Jin was puzzled, why were Kojiki's family so hated? It is understandable that Kurozumi Orakai wants to exterminate Kojiki's family by all means. There is a reason why the boss of his family is hunting down the Kojiki family. And the big Buddha in front of him also wanted to hunt down Guanjiu. Why? Okay, then I won't ask any more questions. We will be waiting for you. After saying this, Jin disappeared. Hehe, these damned people must die in my hands. After saying that, Shen Yuan looked at the dying black charcoal snake again. How do you want to die? What? Before he could finish his words, an extremely strong gravitational force pulled him up and then smashed him down heavily. The big snake stopped moving and fell to the ground motionless. Power of the earth. Pressure. The huge force squeezed the snake again, causing it to lose its second life. Vomit. The big snake couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. A face full of confusion and fear. I like what you do, but I really don't like how you treat civilians. As he spoke, gravity exploded again, killing the third life of Kurozumi Orakai. This, sir, what do you want to do? Please let me go. Doing what? Shen Yuan held his chin as a giant black hand held the snake in its hand. You have the information I want to know. Tell me everything and I'll let you go. Kurozumi Orakai shuddered and began to process the information in his head. About Kojiki's family. Shen Yuan nodded. Kurozumi Orakai was relieved, and spilled the beans about the Kojiki retainers. Kawamatsu is currently at the quarry. He is a retainer of the Kojiki family. The voice just fell. The big snake suddenly felt a gravitational force burst in his body, and his fourth life disappeared. No, you still have secrets. Shen Yuan moved his fingers, and another dark energy rose into the air, looking extremely hideous and terrifying. I said. Kurozumi Orakai was covered in cold sweat and cooperated very well, telling Shen Yuan everything he knew. Shen Yuan was stunned when he heard this. What do I know about these things? What are you talking about? How many child brides in your family or how many male children in your family have they got to do with me? The more Shen Yuan thought about it, the angrier he became. With a wave of his hand, a spike made of dark energy suddenly pierced through the giant snake's chest. The big snake cried out in pain. Don't kill me, don't kill me. I have another piece of information about Kaido. Oh? Tell me, let me hear it. The black charcoal snake breathed a sigh of relief. But he was also very frightened. He only had 4 lives left. According to the information obtained by the spies, Kaido is very likely to have contacted Charlotte Linlin, and seems to have some connection with the world government. Well said. I like honest people like you. Saying. A sharp spike pierced the snake's chest again. Puff. Why did you kill me? Shen Yuan curled his lips. You are too ugly, or maybe you have too many lives. Have you heard of the story of Ho Yi shooting down the sun? The charcoal snake's face turned black. I only have 3 lives left. Can I fight to the death and carve out a bloody path? The big snake lost its life again. What? The snake was heartbroken. Pain. It hurts so much. Sir, what do you want me to do in order to let me go? Hearing this question, Shen Yuan was also stunned. Then, die as atonement for your sins. Say it. Shen Yuan took back all the dark energy. He rushed towards the black charcoal snake at an incredible speed. A big hand grabbed his neck, and his fruit ability was instantly sealed. When the black charcoal snake reacted, his abdomen had been pierced by a punch. Puff! The big snake knelt on the ground, vomiting blood. Is this it? No nonsense. Shen Yuan kicked the big snake with another football kick, sending it flying and embedding it on the cliff in the distance. Oh! After stretching his muscles a little, Shen Yuan felt refreshed. Kill the plot character Kurozumi Orakai and gain 5 skill points. Shen Yuan was satisfied, and added all 5 skills to the power of darkness. This allowed him to gain a better understanding of the gravitational force of black holes. Gulala, what? Whitebeard stood in the distance with his hands behind his back, as if he had already made a decision. Gulala. I think you are right. Odin is indeed a guilty man. You decide this matter yourself. Shen Yuan turned around and waved his hand. He was squatting there, fiddling with something. At this time, Shen Yuan discovered a stone tablet inlaid with ancient characters. I discovered it by accident when I killed the big snake just now. Old man, come and take a look, what is this? Whitebeard also frowned and walked slowly towards Shen Yuan. Standing still, leaning forward, looking down. This is the historical text. When Whitebeard said this, Shen Yuan suddenly lost interest. It's a wall-breaking thing, keep it for yourself. Whitebeard looked hopeful as he continued to dig the dirt around the stone tablet. It's like a little boy who discovered a mysterious treasure. Whitebeard was in a trance and returned to his youth, when he was still a carefree boy. Chapter 59. Chess Game. The next morning. On the Moby Dick, Shen Yuan still held the 2 girls in his arms and woke up in a daze. He pushed Khalifa aside, picked up a cigarette from the bedside table and put it in his mouth. A cigarette in the morning is better than being a god. He straightened his clothes, glanced at the 2 girls with blushing faces, and gave a warm smile. He carefully covered her with a blanket, opened the door and walked out. Goo! 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 The messenger pigeon arrived on time and obediently placed a newspaper and a dozen reward warrants in Shen Yuan's hands. Shen Yuan touched the little head of the carrier pigeon with a kind face, reached into his pocket and took out a bag of Baileys and put it in its backpack. Go! The carrier pigeon responded happily a few times, then flew high into the sky and gradually disappeared. Shen Yuan lay on the recliner and rubbed his hands excitedly. Come on! Let me see what has changed in the world. The first thing you see is a striking title. Newspaper headline. The storm is coming. A war between the 2 major 4 emperors. He laughed silently and continued reading. Newspaper content. Kaido, who was crowned as one of the 4 emperors, was defeated by the Whitebeard pirates yesterday. It is understood that the person who started the war this time was the vice-captain of the Whitebeard pirates, the god of death Shen Yuan. In just one day, the capture of most of Kaido's island was the result of an agreement between the 2 parties, or was there someone behind the scenes fanning the flames? The facts are full of doubts. According to the newspaper, a group of suspected intelligence officers seem to be threatening and intimidating the crew of the Whitebeard pirates, carrying out a secret mission. Shen Yuan closed the newspaper and smiled strangely. Morgans, so brave? What a man of blood! Shen Yuan had no time to read the rest of the news. Reach out your hand and use gravity to attract a seagull from a distance. Waves of dark energy entered Seagull's body, instantly controlling his intelligence. Go, keep an eye on that bitch and that idiot who likes cherry pie. The seagull's hollow eyes flashed with black light as it flew high into the sky and disappeared into the forest on the island. It seems that my assumption is correct. It is indeed possible to use the power of candlelight and dark energy to control some creatures. Get off the main ship and look at the scenery on the island. The once prosperous and bustling border island has now turned into a ruin. Despite the reconstruction work, the difficulty was extremely great. Whoosh! A flash of lightning appeared quietly, and he took out another note and stuffed it into Shen Yuan's hand. He turned around and was about to leave, but was grabbed by Shen Yuan. Kyung, Kawamatsu is at the quarry, go over and check it out. I will be heading to Wano country next. Joan nodded. His whole body was flashing with lightning and he was shot out instantly. After doing this, Shen Yuan began to test the fruit's ability alone. Based on previous battles, the development of the devil fruit depends on the imagination of the user. The directions in which some natural systems can develop are even more complex and varied. One is to strengthen oneself by increasing one's own strength. Secondly, you can create combat puppets to assist in combat. Of course, the development is more than that. When a new idea is added to the fruit ability. For example, Marco was an ordinary bird. I can handle both ice and fire, and I can do anything I want every day. Shen Yuan closed his eyes and sat cross-legged on the ground. Golden light began to radiate from his entire body, and he looked as if he was cultivating immortality. If this yang force can penetrate deep into my bones and spread throughout my body, then can I be reborn? Shen Yuan took a deep breath. He could feel that the temperature of this extreme yang force was extremely high. If he fails, he will be vaporized instantly. But, can the undead King Kong save this? He secretly thought that if he wanted to force himself to train his body, he would have to make more preparations. Shen Yuan stood up and exhaled a breath. Master, you got up so early. Enlil walked out of the tent slowly, with his hands behind his back, looking very comfortable. Why are you up so early? Enlil curled his lips. Master, I have ascended. How to say? Shen Yuan turned around and stared at Enlil without blinking. Ever since I saw Master's future trial and error, I started to develop my own fighting method. Judging from the facts, I succeeded. Shen Yuan showed a strange smile and pretended to be surprised. Really? What is that? In fact, he had already expected it, and it was most likely the heart network. Beyond that, what else? Enlil smiled evilly and began to use his observation haki. At this moment, the entire border island seemed to have pressed the pause button. Shen Yuan also clearly sensed that Enlil at this moment was very different from before. At this moment, Enlil is like a chess player who controls the entire chess game, and all objects on the island are chess pieces at his mercy. Clap! Clap! Strange sounds kept coming out from all around, as if two chess players were playing against each other. The chess game begins. Enlil shouted loudly and instantly dodged in front of a big tree. Stretch out your finger! Suddenly blasted towards the big tree. A strong force penetrated the tree, but the tree did not move at all. Shen Yuan was amazed when he saw this scene and continued to watch Enlil's chess game. One wave has not subsided, and another wave arises. Enlil appeared again, this time appearing next to a huge rock. A whip-like kick was thrown out quickly with a strong wind. Chess game. And the voice just fell. Border Island has returned to normal. Wherever Enlil attacked just now, the trees and boulders were all shattered. Shen Yuan was indeed a little surprised. Enlil actually developed to this level? Is it the ability to freeze time for a short period of time? That's amazing. Enlil was very proud, as if he had won a certificate and was asking for praise from his parents. This ability is to interfere with the future in advance and severely damage the enemy before the battle begins. Shen Yuan walked up and patted Enlil on the shoulder, his face full of relief. You are worthy of being my beloved disciple. You really make me proud. Remember when Enlil first boarded the ship, his height was only up to Shen Yuan's waist. It's only been half a year. Enlil is like a small tree. Under the protection and training of the big tree, he grows healthily every day and his height has reached the same level as Shen Yuan. Master, thank you for your teaching. Enlil felt a little embarrassed and his face turned red. Yes, your strength is now almost at the level of a vice-emperor. The gap between you and a strong person is now only one devil fruit away. Enlil's eyes shone with golden light, and he was very eager. I think you are more suitable for the natural devil fruit. But all of that scoundrel's subordinates are animal type, and there is no devil fruit suitable for you at the moment. Say it. Shen Yuan fell into deep thought again. Should he go to the underwater prison to get some money? Master, when I was looking at your devil fruit encyclopedia, there was one fruit that really moved me. You said. Mori Sen fruit. The Mori Mori fruit. Shen Yuan nodded. This fruit is likely to appear in the navy. To be honest, he didn't know whether Green Bull had eaten the Sen Sen fruit or not. Eat it and kill it yourself. I've made note of this fruit. Go tell the old man, and then we'll all set off for Wano country. Oh, Master, are you making a move again? Having said this, Anilo turned around and entered Whitebeard's tent. Well, we can go to the underwater prison. Undersea prison? Shen Yuan was indeed going to go, but not to be tortured in, but to be beaten in. Chapter 60. Awakening Laziness. Once this report was released, it instantly caused a sensation around the world. Holy place! Marie Joya. The 5 elders sat down in the conference room, and each of them looked unhappy. Saint Vouchery said gloomily, Morgans, that guy, blamed all the wars of aggression on the world government. Is this a provocation? Nasujiro Sei shouted angrily, this bastard. We must take a serious look at Shen Yuan, who has repeatedly challenged the authority of the world government. First, they killed our intelligence troops and executed them. Then they invaded Kaido's territory right under our noses and started a war. I think we can discuss this matter with Kaido. Peter Saint's face remained gentle, without any sign of fluctuation. Nasujiro Sei retorted, no. We must use thunderbolts this time. Wipe out Shen Yuan and the Whitebeard pirates in one fell swoop. Their existence is not conducive to the balance of power among the 3 forces at sea. That's right. Saint Wolkuli said angrily, contact Sengoku immediately, no. Contact Akainu, and let Akainu lead the navy to encircle Shen Yuan directly. Inappropriate. Peter Saint took a sip of tea and still held his objection. First of all, Shen Yuan was able to defeat Kaido and occupy Kaido's territory. Can a general with this kind of combat power really be arrested instantly or executed on the spot? After these words came out, the other 4 frowned. Yes, that's a fact. Even if all the navy members were mobilized, it would be impossible to eliminate Shen Yuan successfully. Seeing that everyone was silent, Saint Peter continued to speak. Secondly, whether it is Shen Yuan or the Whitebeard pirates. Are you so naive to think that you can win it with just some hard work? Nasu Xiaolangsheng said dimly, indeed, you are right. Should we send out the 12 divine guards? This view is put forward, everyone is thinking. Mobilize the 12 divine guards? Is it really worth it? Okay, I'll start making the arrangements, and then communicate with Kaido. Nasu Xiaolangsheng made the decision, and the others had no objections. The meeting targeting Shen Yuan ended here. Naval Headquarters. Malinvondo. This kid is really lawless. Zhang Guo closed his eyes and thought, as if he didn't want to accept this sad fact. Somebody come. After saying that, a marine hurriedly walked in from outside. Call Akainu, I need to talk to him. The marine agreed and walked out of the office. Within an incense stick of time, Akainu walked into the office with a stern face without a trace of emotion. Marshal Zhang Guo, is there anything you want me to do? Sengoku was puzzled, and frowned as he saw Akainu was ready to set off at any time. Where are you going? Akainu was speechless after hearing this and didn't know what to say for a moment. The world government gave you the order directly, bypassing me. Am I right? Akainu was surprised when he heard this and nodded woodenly. I won't get involved in this matter, but you have to remember not to die there. Sengoku gave a warning and kicked Akainu out of the office. Akainu was confused and angry. But if you think about it carefully, can Shen Yuan snatch the meat from Kaido's mouth and go up to fight the entire Beichuan and the ruthless Shen Yuan? We still need to discuss it with them. Akainu made up his mind and took out a den mushi from his arms. Kizaru joked, yeah, it seems like something interesting is going to happen again. Aokiji walked slowly into the corridor and said lazily, what happened to Admiral Akainu? Humph. Akainu rolled his eyes at Aokiji and ignored him. Admiral Akainu, please stop being so boring. I don't have time for you right now. Akainu brushed past Aokiji's shoulder and passed by without even looking at him again. Aokiji walked into the marshal's office and the first thing he saw was Sengoku, who was shaving a goat. Marshal Zhang Guo is really in a good mood. Zhang Guo looked back, and his originally tense expression suddenly relaxed. What's the matter? Is there something wrong? Zhang Guo asked with a smile. Aokiji reached into his inner pocket and pulled out a bounty notice with a serious look on his face. The world government has raised Shen Yuan's bounty to 3 billion baileys. What do you think about this? Upon hearing this, Zhang Guo stood up with a serious look on his face. 3 billion baileys. This time the world government has invested a huge amount of money. Aokiji was speechless. Didn't I know that the world government has invested huge sums of money? Looking at Aokiji's puzzled face, Sengoku couldn't help but sneer. Yes. I also read the newspaper. Shen Yuan did something big. There may be other hidden stories behind this matter. Oh. Aokiji, who was originally a little lazy, suddenly became interested and looked at the old marshal in front of him with interest. This could be a big conspiracy. Judging from everything that has happened so far, it will never be that simple. Zhang Guo took a sip of the tea and spoke again. The first is to kill the CP9 members and put the blame for the swallow fruit on the world government. Of course, anyone with a discerning eye can see that there is something fishy going on here. Secondly, the world government did not pursue the attack on Judicial Island. Do you think this is normal? Aokiji nodded in surprise. Continuously testing the bottom line of the world government, what do you think Shen Yuan is going to do? Aokiji said indifferently, maybe. Before he could finish, Zhang Guo sneered and interrupted him, saying, yes, this person's wishes are very similar to the ideals of the Revolutionary Army. After he finished speaking, Zhang Guo let out a breath. Qing Pheasant was silent. He didn't force his way into Wano country, which proves that he didn't want to hurt innocent people. Sengoku added again, shocking Aokiji. Who wasn't a young boy full of passion back then? Who didn't have a dream of liberating the world? It's a pity that the heavy hammer of reality gave me a hard blow on the head. Oh. If Shen Yuan was a navy, we would definitely become good friends. Zhang Guo also nodded, with a look of regret on his face. Indeed, if it weren't for Garp, this brat. Suddenly, Zhang Guo seemed to have thought of something, and his eyes suddenly flashed with golden light. If you can get in touch with this kid. After all, he is Garp's grandson. As long as the method is correct, this kid can be recruited into the navy. 3 billion criminals, you want to pull him into the navy camp? Aokiji smiled bitterly, looking unconvinced. Eat your food one bite at a time. Walk your path one step at a time. The Warring States period at this time is no longer the Warring States period of youth. In his youth, the Sengoku acted vigorously, always defending the world government. But since he saw some of the true nature of the world, he began to change. Just a few years ago, when Garp told him about his grandson. Aokiji also reacted after hearing this, it was indeed true. I also had a dream, which was to liberate the world. But it's just a bubble after all, my strength can only do this much. He also dislikes the actions of the world government, but... With his mind racing, Aokiji began to think about how to face Shen Yuan and how to persuade him to join the navy. Thinking of this, Aokiji stood up and said goodbye and walked out of the office. Zhang Guo was still sitting in his seat, slowly closing his eyes. There was a moment when he really wanted to resign and pass the position of marshal to Aokiji. But Aokiji has lost his passion and has become extremely perfunctory and lazy. I hope that brat can awaken Aokiji's soul. Zhang Guo took a deep breath and continued to shear his pet sheep. On the other side, Akainu changed his mind. You want me to be cannon fodder? Impossible. Thinking of this, he directly refused the task from the 5 elders on the grounds of work. That brat deserves to die, but if I were to go to the meeting alone, I would probably die there. Chapter 61. Set out for Wano country and the assassination begins. The country of peace. At this moment, Kaido is still recuperating from his injuries. Brr, boo, 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 boo. Kaido glanced and picked up the ringing den mushi. Hello? What do you want from me? Kaido's face was extremely gloomy, and there seemed to be a murderous aura all around him. Kaido. Do you know who you are talking to? Kaido was stunned. Is it the 5 Elder Stars? Saint Voculi said in a deep voice, I heard that you suffered losses recently. Yes, what advice do you have? Do you want revenge? Saint Voculi once again deliberately guided. Kaido fell into deep thought for a moment. If you have the will, call this den mushi within 3 days. You will get what you want. Before he finished speaking, a stream of hot breath sprayed into the ghost island where Kaido was. It blasted a big hole directly in his cave. Boom! Gravel splashing. 2 figures slowly stood still and appeared in front of Kaido. Reach Ghost Island and get bonus skill points 5. Who is it? Kaido stood up and looked towards the cave entrance. Just by looking at it, his face instantly became as gloomy as water. Shen Yuan? What can I do for you? He smiled slightly. Using the gravity of the black hole to attract den mushi. At this time, the Den Mushi was not hung up, and Saint Wakuri was still eavesdropping. Kaido was stunned. What is this for? Shen Yuan pretended not to know that the person on the other side of Den Mushi was the world government, and instead started negotiating with Kaido first. How's our agreement going? Kaido finally breathed a sigh of relief, as long as his life was not in danger. Don't worry, someone has been sent. Kaido thought that what Shen Yuan talked to him about was probably the matter of Seastone, so he answered so straightforwardly. But the conversation was different when it reached the ears of the 5 elders. Little did they know that this time, even Kaido was caught in the tide of the world. Well, I came here this time for some damned people. If I kill your blind men, don't blame me. Kaido took a deep breath and suppressed his anger. The dragon opened its mouth, revealing a smile that was uglier than crying. Of course. That's good. Shen Yuan crushed the Den Mushi and disappeared with Enelu. Kaido breathed a sigh of relief. Wrong. That's my phone. On the other end of the line, Saint Vakuli listened to the dead tone of the phone. At this moment, that sentence was all in his mind. What did we agree on? How's it going? This sentence was like a wake-up call in Saint Vakuli's heart, waking him up suddenly. Is this a trap? Is this a trap set by Kaido and Shen Yuan? Wano country, Rabbit Bowl. The prisoners here are oppressed every day. We are treated unequally every day. Here. Shen Yuan had already found out everything. He came to the door of Tuan openly, glanced at the little minion guarding the door, and said casually. Tell your warden to come out. The minion's face was full of confusion and a bit of anger. Who are you? Shen Yuan frowned and glanced at Enelu beside him. He understood, and his figure flashed. The huge golden halberd brought with it a strong wind and beheaded the minion instantly. Okay, he's blind, but you are? Call your boss over, I need him for something. The little minion was immediately frightened. He turned around tremblingly and went to report. Master, we can definitely get in, why do you? If we break in, won't it make more noise? Enelu nodded and said nothing more. In a moment. He has long black hair, a big beard, and a huge elephant head on his chest. A very tall and muscular man walked towards me. Hello, are you Lord Shen Yuan? Lord Jin told me to follow me. Babanuki was very respectful and he always had respect for the strong. Sit down. Babanuki respectfully pulled out a chair and asked Shen Yuan to sit on it. He didn't act pretentiously and just sat down on it. You are? I'm Babanuki, the warden of Rabbit Bowl. You can just call me Zioba. Okay, Zioba. I heard there's a prisoner named Kawamatsu in the prison. Babanuki nodded repeatedly and said honestly, indeed. Is there another skinny old man? Babanuki was lost in memories. It seems that there is such a person. Call them all to me. I need them for something. Babanuki. Don't understand, but do it. After a while. The 2 men had their feet shackled and their hands locked with sea-stone handcuffs. Just like that, he walked into Babanuki's office step by step. Babanuki looked at the 2 men fiercely, and then said to Shen Yuan respectfully. My lord, these are the 2. Okay, it's none of your business. Babanuki agreed and walked out of the office with the jailer. After everyone left, Shen Yuan's face became extremely serious. One of them. He has long, unruly orange hair, a huge body, webbed hands, and an appearance similar to a frog in a kappa. The whole body is green and he wears a conical hat. His height was his only shortcoming. You are Kappa Kawamatsu, one of the 9 red scabbards, right? Hisong trembled all over when he heard this, as if he was struck by a bolt of lightning. Sir, what are you talking about? How can I? The other was small and thin, and looked very old. He has light blue flame-shaped hair, eyebrows, and beard. Wearing an orange scarf, with the upper body exposed. On his shoulders and back, there are blue vest-shaped tattoos embellished with pink flowers. You are, the flower capital underworld boss known as Hana no Hyogoro. The skinny old man froze, as if he was paralyzed by the chain lightning coming from Hisong. When the 2 of them were caught by Babanuki himself, they already realized something. I know your identity very well. Besides that, I am the current vice-captain of the Whitebeard Pirates. Hisong was shocked again. In just a dozen seconds, the news he learned flooded into his mind like a wave. Really? Hisong put away his surprise and looked around. Sir, why do you want me to come here? Hisong asked in surprise. Don't worry, do you know that everyone here treats me with respect? Because I am about to kill Kaido, if I am a little unhappy, this place will be reduced to dust in an instant. As he spoke, Shen Yuan controlled his domineering aura and suddenly burst out. The hurricane blew across their cheeks, and cold sweat instantly broke out on their foreheads. What? Do you understand the difference between you and me? If I want to kill you, there is no need to go through so much trouble. After saying that, Shen Yuan glanced at Enelu obscurely. Enelu understood, took a step forward, and whispered. Master, you can't cooperate with them. Our situation is very critical now. Shen Yuan slapped Enelu's hand away and said seriously. That's impossible. Odin is our good friend. How can we let Kaido go? After these words were spoken, the two of them were shocked. Shen Yuan? Are you Lord Shen Yuan? Hisong spoke tremblingly, his face full of disbelief. Hyogoro turned to look at Kawamatsu and asked, You know? Of course, I have also overheard some news from the jailers these days. Lord Shen Yuan attacked the judicial island, and then fought Kaido and the three big bosses without losing the upper hand. Really? Bing Guolang looked incredulous. It seems that you already understand, so I won't beat around the bush. I need your help from the inside. I will help Odin's son to successfully establish the country of Wano. In fact, Shen Yuan's idea is very simple. Can't Cat Viper and Inuarashi be found? This time I'll let you die on your own, so that we can all be wiped out at once, right? And it's a one-time solution? As for Momonosuke, after all, he traveled through time, but where did he travel to? Who the hell knows? Chapter 62, 9. Head Mountain Trip. Son of Odin. Hisong murmured to himself, seeming to have great respect for this word. You will really help Wano country to be founded, right? Hisong couldn't believe it. I have never met Odin, and I only heard the name Odin from others. Can this person really help Wano country to be founded? Hisong lowered his head to think, and finally shook his head. Since you are honest with me, I will not hide anything from you. I am the retainer of Lord Kojiki Odin, Kappa Kawamatsu. Well, I've known your identity for a long time. Shen Yuan said calmly. Hisong did not care about Shen Yuan's attitude and continued to ask. Do you know the whereabouts of Odin's son? Wasn't he transported to 20 years later? Shouldn't he be a few years later now? This time, Hisong is not calm. Why do you know this secret? Even Lord Whitebeard doesn't know this. Why do I know? Shen Yuan sneered and continued, I also know that a lot of people have traveled through time and space with the help of space fruits. Is that true or not? Hisong was startled all of a sudden. He felt that the person in front of him was no longer Shen Yuan. But he is the new savior, the prophet, and the only one who can save the Kojiki family. Look at Bing Guolang next to him. I received so much explosive information at once. Small body, big energy. At this moment, his brain is working at high speed, constantly digesting this information. Kojiki Odin was the daimyo of Kuri. He was deceived and died by Kaido a few years ago. Later, the Kurozumi family took advantage of Odin's absence to rebel and seize power. You, the retainers of Kojiki, were hunted down by Kurozumi Orokai? Is that true or not? Hisong nodded woodenly. These things were not absolutely confidential, but they were also things that could not be passed on to others. Sir, how do you know these things? The secret cannot be leaked. This simple sentence made Kawamatsu and Hyogoro excited at the same time. You know everything? Hyogoro asked tentatively. Almost the same. Shen Yuan completely acted like a god, as if he was a living god in the world. Then can you tell me what the future of Wano country will be like? Wano country? Of course it's a peaceful and prosperous country. Kawamatsu asked. Then can you tell me, Your Excellency, what is the fate of us? I'm sorry, I can't reveal it, but your fate has already been secretly determined. Hearing this, Hisong's expression darkened. Are we all going to die on the road to defeat Kaido? More or less. Shen Yuan did not lie. What he said was almost the same, and it really was almost the same. They would all die anyway. Hisong was a little excited, with an expression of sacrificing one's life heroically. Then why did you summon us here? Shen Yuan showed a meaningful smile and said. Of course, we need to gather people. Then surrender obediently. Shen Yuan thought to himself, the corners of his mouth couldn't help but rise. Okay. Then I can tell you, don't worry. I will gather all the 9 red scabbards in Wano country. Okay. Then I'll be waiting for good news. How will we meet up then? July. Taoshan. As he spoke, Shen Yuan controlled gravity and pushed the door open. Babanuki, who was outside the door, turned around and looked, giving a respectful smile. They are both innocent, let them go. Babanuki was instantly entangled. On the one hand, there is pressure from Kurozumi Orakai, and on the other hand, there is pressure from Shen Yuan. Should he let him go or not? I have killed the Kurozumi Orakai with my own hands. Do you understand? Shen Yuan slowly pulled out the heaven-swallowing sword. The black mist instantly filled the room, making Babanuki break out in a cold sweat. Okay. I got it. I'll let them go right now. After finishing speaking, Babanuki quickly opened the handcuffs and shackles for the 2 men and let them go. I will repay your kindness in the future. Hisong's figure flashed and disappeared. I have nowhere to go, old man. Can I stay with you, sir? Bing Guolang looked so sincere that even Shen Yuan couldn't bring himself to do it. Okay. Anilo exchanged glances with him, and everything was said without words. Leaving the rabbit bowl. Before leaving, Babanuki did not forget to say goodbye to him. Anilo lowered his voice and asked, Master, what is your next plan? Well, where are we? It seems we are almost reaching Kulai. Anilo said in a deep voice while looking at the map of Wano country. Shen Yuan said calmly, Kaido's map is really detailed. After saying this, he looked around. This is a hill surrounded by trees and no pedestrians pass by. Bing Goro, do you know what it feels like when someone dies? Bing Guolang was confused and was about to speak. A black knife light quickly flashed towards his neck. With one blow to the throat, Bing Guolang half knelt on the ground, his eyes full of shock. With another strike of the sword, it pierced through Bing Guolang's chest. Remember not to be friends with Odin in your next life. Say it. Waves of dark gravity squeezed and crushed Bing Guolang's body, eventually turning it into a pool of blood. Kill the plot character Bing Guolang and get bonus skill points too. We are not going to attack by force this time. Remember, assassinations must be killed in one strike. Anilo smiled, nodded, and said nothing. Okay, let's go to July's Taoshan and solve it all at once. Say it. The 2 figures fell into darkness and left the murder scene. In a moment, the gravity of darkness attracted Anilo to float high in the sky, while Shen Yuan wandered in the sky with the power of candlelight. At this moment, the 2 of them quickly headed towards Taoshan. Why? Do you think I'm a bit cruel? No, I'm thinking about who will be the next general of Wano country. It's most likely the courtesan Xiao Zi. Little Purple. Anil asked in bewilderment, why? Murabane is the Warren of Wano country and is very popular among the people. As for why, it's because she is beautiful. Anilo was speechless and was unable to speak for a moment. This statement makes some sense. But is this really the case? Also, the true identity of the Warren Kojiki is Kojiki Hiri, the daughter of Kojiki Odin. He will also strive for this position. Having said that, Shen Yuan sighed. A person who has been poisoned by Odin's thoughts. Alas! Anilo thought for a moment and said. Master, do you really want to liberate the world? Shen Yuan sighed heavily again when he heard this. This is a matter of convenience. I want to reach the pinnacle of power. Anil was shocked, his eyes full of fanaticism. That look was like a believer who had gone crazy. Say it. The 2 of them sped up and disappeared in the blink of an eye. At this time, the head mountain. A group of thieves are having a party and they all look very happy. The tall and fat Ashura boy was sitting in the main seat, completely unaware of the danger that was approaching. Boom boom boom. Ashura boy frowned, confused, come in. Oh. The door was kicked down. The broken door panel split into wooden strips and flew everywhere. A tall figure stood outside the door, with his arms folded, looking coldly at everyone in the room. Buzz. The domineering aura of the king burst out, knocking out all the thieves. Ashura boy stood there in a daze, his right hand already on his sword. But at this moment, an incomparable strong wind whistled in. Then a black iron fist suddenly slammed towards his face. He only had time to block with his arms. However, this force was too strong and shattered his hand bones, causing him to fall down like noodles. He was sent flying by the punch, and suddenly a big hole was created in the back wall. This power was still active and smashed several watchtowers at the rear. At this time, Shen Yuan also quickly followed as if attracted by magnets. He drew out the sky-swallowing sword on the way, and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. Azura boy was about to speak. But I just felt a chill on my neck, and suddenly the world was spinning. Boom! 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 His head fell to the ground and bounced slightly a few times, and he died with his eyes open. Oh! Shen Yuan crushed its head with one foot. He took out a list from his pocket and began to check it. Well! Ashura boy is dead. Kill the plot character Ashura boy and gain 3 skill points. Say it. He put the list back into his pocket again and turned to look at the chaotic thieves. My beloved disciple, please step back. Enel retreated several meters, looking very fearful. Shen Yuan flew high into the sky, his chest and abdomen swelled. Destroy the heat. Say it. A stream of hot breath burst out from his mouth. Everything along the way will be annihilated. Sizzle. Sizzle. The entire mountain was flattened with one move. And there is no trace of it. The houses and buildings, along with the corpses, were all vaporized. Shen Yuan wiped his mouth and fell to the ground. You still can't mess around with the sun's temperature. The power in my body is a little disordered. He shook his head and felt better. Chapter 63, Flying Through Tengu Mountain. After dealing with the Ashura boy, the two of them hurried and finally arrived at the Bianli village before dark. Hey, Enelu, why do you like apple pie so much? Shen Yuan glanced at Enelu with interest, and said again. Do you know how much of my money you spent? Enelu felt a little embarrassed and his face turned red instantly. Excuse me, but master, I just think apple pie is delicious. Shen Yuan immediately argued, No, I still think that Dashiki's food is more delicious. Enel did not refute, but the expression on his face gradually became funny. As soon as the two of them stepped into the sphere of influence of the Beikeza village, several samurai came forward to intercept them. Shen Yuan looked at these warriors with a sidelong glance, his eyes were very cold. Each of these warriors was skinny and had a yellow face from hunger, looking as if they had not eaten in 800 lifetimes. Try to keep them alive. Say it. Shen Yuan took a step back, giving Enel enough space to perform. Enel thrust the golden halberd into the ground, colliding his fists together, and gave a sinister smile. The chess game opens and closes in an instant. The two of them walked into the village of Haikaza without paying any attention to the group of samurai. Puff! Puff! All the warriors spat out blood and half knelt on the ground, dying. Enelu, I told you about Kojiki Odin's sword, right? Master, you want to grab it? No, these two swords should be in the hands of strong people. Giving them to a loser, isn't it a bit of a waste? Enelu was speechless and unusually silent. The two entered the village and suddenly saw a figure slowly approaching from a distance. Are you planning to plunder the village? A man wearing a Tengu mask and clothes that imitated the shape of a Tengu stood in front of the two men with his arms folded and a very unfriendly look in his eyes. Not entirely, Senior Tengu, the two of us want to pay our respects to the second generation Kaiditsu. Tengu Yamaface looked very cautious, and his eyes under the Tengu mask were fixed on Shen Yuan. Who are you? How do you know about the second generation Kaiditsu? Tengu Yama Hiket is still cautious. Years of lurking and forbearing have made him develop the habit of preparing for a rainy day. I have killed Kurozumi Orakai and seriously injured Kaido. Are such people qualified to watch the second generation of Kaiditsu? Tengu Shanface's face under the mask was extremely shocked, as if he was struck by a bolt of lightning. This young man in front of him, who looked only in his teens, actually injured Kaido? And he also killed the Kurozumi snake? Tengu Shanface shook his head and said with emotion, No. Impossible. As he spoke, Shen Yuan moved. He took out a newspaper from his arms, stepped forward and handed it to Tengu Yama Hiket. He took it solemnly and saw the photo in the newspaper at first glance. You are the god of death. Tengu Yama Hiket still couldn't believe it, as if he was in a dream. Yes, that's me. This is you. Yet. This is what I looked like before. Tengu Yama Hiket continued to look at the information in the newspaper. The more he read, the more his brows furrowed, and his expression gradually became fearful. You are a strong man, Mr. Death God. Do you want to inherit the legacy of the second generation of Kaititsu? I'm just taking a look. Shen Yuan said with a grin. Who is this? My beloved disciple, Enelu. Tenguyama Hiket nodded, which was considered as his agreement. Then please follow me, both of you. In a moment, several people sat down together in a hidden room in the mountains. In addition, there was a little girl in the room, looking at Shen Yuan and the others curiously. It has a cute appearance and a short stature. A pair of big round purple eyes, with medium-length dark lilac hair. She wore a light green short skirt kimono with a yellow sash and a pink hairpin, but it was covered with patches. Ugh! When Shen Yuan saw this scene, he really softened his heart. Who would reject a harmless little lowly? Kid, what's your name? Au glanced at Tengu Shanfeish, who nodded in agreement, and then Au spoke. My name is Au. Xiao, you must have never eaten anything delicious, right? Saying. Shen Yuan took out an apple pie from Enelu's package and handed it to Xiao. Au's big watery eyes were full of surprise. Brother? Can I really eat it? Looking at Au's watery eyes, Shen Yuanzi felt his conscience was condemned. Just now, I actually had the idea of killing someone to silence them. How wicked! Of course. Shen Yuan handed the apple pie to Xiao, but that was not the end. He took out a lot of food from the package, such as dried meat, dried fruits, and other snacks. Au's eyes were shining with gold, and she looked at Shen Yuan as if she was looking at a god. Thank you, brother. Brother is so kind. Shen Yuan picked up Au with a loving look on his face, touched Au's little head lovingly, his eyes full of heartache. Senior, your life is not going well, right? Tiangishan sighed heavily and said with a heavy face. The bamboo hats have not been selling well these years, so. Alas, what a fate. Say it. Shen Yuan carried Au into the room step by step, and Enelu followed closely behind. When Enelu saw this scene, he seemed to recall a day a year ago. I was also so helpless, and I met Shen Yuan on Sky Island. From then on, his life was rewritten, and he had extraordinary strength. Have an extremely solid backing and a master who is better than his father. Thinking of this, Enelu also smiled. This kind of master who is tough yet gentle is the best master. The four of them sat in the room, and on the table were the snacks that Shen Yuan gave to Xiao. Brother, where are you from? Shen Yuan folded his arms and said slowly. We are adventurers, a team that travels the world. My hometown is Donghai. The East China Sea must be fun, right? Au said with interest. Of course, the East China Sea has everything. Au spoke again, then brother, please take me and master out to sea together. Speaking of this, Shen Yuan looked at Au's expectant eyes and fell into deep thought. If we bring the Kojiki Skiyaki back to the old man's boat, it will be considered as an explanation to him. But as soon as this thought came into mind, it was completely shattered. Senior, please take a step to speak. As soon as he finished speaking, Shen Yuan stood up and stared at Tiangishan with burning eyes. Well, okay, Mr. Death, let's go to the back hill and let these two kids get along on their own. Shen Yuan nodded and walked out of the room with him. In a moment, we reached the back mountain. Shen Yuan spoke first. Kojiki Skiyaki senpai, can I call you that? Skiyaki was stunned for a moment, and then became extremely flustered. The expression under the mask seemed as if he wanted to fight to the death with Shen Yuan here. Don't get excited. I mean no harm to you. Even for Au's sake, I won't let you fall into danger. Skiyaki calmed down a lot after hearing this, and his clenched hands relaxed slightly. He took off the Tengu mask, revealing his true appearance. What do you think of Odin? Shen Yuan asked again. Skiyaki closed his eyes tightly, trying to recall Odin's image. It is a good death for a stubborn person to die. That's right, Odin deserves to die. People like him were born unnecessarily. You should have thrown him against the wall. Chapter 64. The two stood facing each other in the mountains. After Shen Yuan said that, Skiyaki remained silent. Skiyaki, think carefully about what kind of people you have trained in your life. What kind of people are these two successors? Skiyaki's expression instantly turned gloomy when he heard that. Shen Yuan continued to speak. First of all, your good son Kojiki Odin. Going to sea for the so-called dream, disregarding the country, causing national unrest. And Kurozumi Orikai is even more powerful, and he directly sought power and usurped the throne. Do you think you have no responsibility? Sukiyaki's brows furrowed as he listened. At this moment, he no longer cared about how Shen Yuan knew the secret. He was thinking about his life. I can take care of you now, so you must give an explanation to the people of Wano country. Sukiyaki sighed and realized that he really needed to give an explanation to the people of Wano country. Then what do you think, sir? Let's not talk about this for now. I'm very interested in your second-generation Kaititsu. Sukiyaki nodded woodenly, seeming to have accepted his fate. Okay, I can leave the Nidame Kaititsu to you. As he said that, Sukiyaki took out the Nidame Kaititsu from his waist and handed it to Shen Yuan with a serious look on his face. He naturally understood the principle that a sword should be matched with a hero. And judging from the current situation, Shen Yuan is still the benefactor of the Guanjiahe family. Your Excellency must understand that the second-generation Kaititsu is a demon sword, and a demon sword will backfire on its user. Shen Yuan waved his hand and grabbed it. It's a really nice knife. Pulling out the second-generation Kaititsu's sword handle, a black and purple demon sword appeared before his eyes. At the same time, streams of purple mist were constantly devouring the essence in Shen Yuan's body. Suck me? Are you worthy? The power of the candle in Shen Yuan's body attacked the demon sword crazily. The purple mist above the demon sword was slowly purified, and finally disappeared. It's a good knife, but it's contaminated. After saying this, he slowly put the knife into the scabbard and handed it to Sukiyaki, returning the item to its rightful owner. Has it been contaminated? Sukiyaki holds the Nidame Kaititsu and hears this for the first time. Each knife is a container, and each container can be infused with its own power. It's like this. After saying that, Shen Yuan pulled out the heaven-swallowing sword. The black mist spread instantly, as if the second generation of Kaititsu was trembling. Your sword looks very strange. Sukiyaki's eyes were shining with golden light, and he stared at the tuncheon in Shen Yuan's hand without blinking. This knife is a horizontal knife, which has both the elegance of a sword and the strength of a knife. Shen Yuan suddenly swung a sword towards the distance. The black slash that seemed to be able to swallow the world flattened the distant mountain. This sword contains a rich power of death, which is difficult for ordinary people to control. Sukiyaki nodded, incomparably excited. Sukiyaki was eager to try. Can you let me have a try? Don't blame me if you die. He handed tuncheon to Sukiyaki. The latter took it seriously. Just as his hand grasped the handle of the heaven-swallowing sword, he suddenly felt as if his soul was trying to establish a connection with the knife. However, the sky-swallowing black mist uncontrollably attacked his body, causing Sukiyaki's face to turn as pale as paper. The creator of this sword's evil spirit is me. Therefore, this knife needs to control the power of death to be wielded. After he finished speaking, Shen Yuan grabbed tuncheon. The black mist retracted into the blade again, as if nothing had happened. Your sword seems to be more dangerous than the second generation of Kaititsu. No, it is extremely dangerous. Sukiyaki fell to the ground, gasping for breath. This power does not corrode the body, but the soul. He was still frightened. If Shen Yuan hadn't taken the sword back, he might have died at any time. After calming down a bit, Sukiyaki sat up straight and spoke again. If I can do something for Wano country again, please help me. Shen Yuan smiled faintly. The whole family is really the same, always asking please help me. This is the case with Odin and Momonosuke. Even this old man is like this. Looking at Kojiki Sukiyaki again, the slight sympathy he had just felt for Au disappeared at this moment. He said in silence. Okay, you go and sever your ties with Au, and then I'll kill you, so I'll have the opportunity to negotiate with Kaido. I will do my best to help Wano country establish its country, how about that? Sukiyaki fell into deep thought upon hearing this, and began to secretly think about Shen Yuan's intentions. In a moment, Sukiyaki spoke up. Can you really keep your promise? Of course. After finishing speaking, Sukiyaki seemed to have made a decision and bowed heavily to Shen Yuan. Okay, I'll fulfill my promise now, and please don't break your promise. Of course. Shen Yuan still had his arms folded, without a trace of emotion. On the other hand, Enelu and Au had a great conversation. Au learned from Ani that there is a vast world outside. There are countless delicious foods and wines. Some wonderful islands and even a group of friends you can trust. Click, click, click. The sound of footsteps came into the room and Sukiyaki and Shen Yuan returned to the room together. Sukiyaki looked at Au with his old eyes, full of reluctance. Au, you have already become a master, so from now on, follow the Lord of Death. He will ensure your food, clothing, shelter, and safety. After that, Shen Yuan also stepped forward to help out. Xiao, come with me to see, I will take care of you for the rest of your life. Au was somewhat moved. After her parents died, I was alone with my pet, and that's when I met my master. Only then did I feel at home. You really won't abandon Au and will treat Au well. Sukiyaki is still worried, and this is his last fight for Au. Shen Yuan looked at Au, who was only 3 or 4 years old, with a serious expression, and his face was filled with tenderness again. Au seemed to notice Shen Yuan's gaze, and tears gradually appeared in the corners of her eyes. Brother Shen Yuan. I heard from Brother Enel that the world outside is very vast, and I really want to go out to see, but master. Your master has something to do, and it's a big thing. Shen Yuan stepped forward and touched Au's little head, with a gentle smile. Okay. Then I'll go with you. Au was only 3 or 4 years old. He only knew that the brother in front of him was good to him, and that was enough. As for his master, Tenguyama Hichetsu, he just kept waiting, waiting, and waiting again, but no matter how long he waited, he still couldn't fill his stomach. Looking at the pitiful Au, and then at the Tengu that suddenly appeared in front of him, Shen Yuan straightened his back and whispered. Take her to the flower capital first. That's our last stop. Okay. Enela called out to Au, turned around and left, with the puppy jumping after him. Say it. He took another look at Sukiyaki, and his thoughts were self-evident. The two of them wandered to the back mountain again. Before Sukiyaki could stand still, a big black hand had already grabbed his neck. The Kojiki family are all scumbags, you too, your son too, and your grandson even more so. After saying that, before Sukiyaki could speak, the giant black hand suddenly exerted force. Crack! His neck was crushed. Shen Yuan slowly walked out of the back mountain. A corpse behind him had already been buried in the ground. Kill the plot character Tenguyama Hitachi, Kojiki Sukiyaki, and gain 3 skill points. Looking at the second generation Kairitsu in his hand, he chuckled. It's not like there's no gain at all. Chapter 65. After finishing the Sukiyaki, Shen Yuan returned the same way. Because he wanted to find out the news about other retainers, Shen Yuan walked all the way. Walking and stopping, just like shopping. Shen Yuan felt dazed as he walked all the way back to Tuan. How did we get here? Is it fate that is leading us? Sure enough, a figure slowly appeared and rushed towards Shen Yuan. Okay. Only when Shen Yuan saw his face clearly did he recognize the person. It's really a blind cat that catches a dead mouse. It comes without any effort. The person who came was tall and wore a white sleeveless tight-fitting kimono with a blue pattern and 2 diamond patterns on the chest. The person coming is Yamato. Its features are clearly visible, and it is truly big, as expected of a Yamato. Even though this is Yamato in its early years, Yamato is not just ordinary Yamato. What? Shen Yuan said calmly, without a trace of emotion. Get lost. I need to go eat. As he said this, Yamato was about to knock Shen Yuan away. But never thought. Shen Yuan's fist wrapped in the power of candlelight suddenly fell on Yamato's face. Oh! Yamato was blown away by a huge force and fell heavily to the ground in the distance. What? Shen Yuan was still cold and his words remained the same. Yamato lay on the ground and suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. Cough cough. Yamato forced himself to stand up and looked at Shen Yuan with fear. Yamato saw Shen Yuan's face clearly and was suddenly shocked. Ah! You are Shen Yuan? The man who defeated my father. What? The same answer, even a clay man would get angry. Why do you always say this? And you also hit me, Lord Kojiki Odin, I. Before he could finish his words, another punch, accompanied by a strong wind, landed on Yamato's chest again. The high temperature made his chest feel burning, and he spat out red blood again. Puff! Yamato was knocked several meters away again and crashed into the gate of the quarry. What? Yamato was furious and stood up again. Each step he took became faster, and finally his speed suddenly increased, and he kicked Shen Yuan in the head from mid-air. What? Shen Yuan raised his fist to block, turned sideways and grabbed his ankle. Then he smashed it heavily to the ground. Boom! The commotion here instantly attracted a group of jailers and prisoners, who all looked over here. What? What Kojiki Odin? Hasn't that idiot been dead for several years? Yamato on the ground felt powerless and could not help but curse inwardly. If I didn't have these handcuffs, I would. You don't seem convinced. You are restrained by handcuffs, right? Yamato didn't say anything, which was considered as his agreement with this statement. Shen Yuan stepped forward and grabbed Yamato, who was embedded in the ground. A dark gravitational force instantly swallowed up the handcuffs. Boom! There was a muffled sound and the handcuffs disappeared. I'll give you one chance. If you can make me feel threatened, I'll admit that you are Kojiki Odin. Shen Yuan stood with his arms folded, no emotion visible on his face. Someone, bring me my mace. Say it. Several jailers held the maces tremblingly and handed them to Yamato with fear on their faces. How arrogant! Even if you defeat that bastard Kaido, I will still fight you to the death. Yamato raised his mace and launched an attack. What a loving father and filial son! Shen Yuan's face was full of emotion, and a giant black hand emerged from behind him and caught the mace steadily. What's wrong? Is that all your strength? You might as well go home and grow some cucumbers, and then you can take some photos. Yamato's pretty face turned red, and she looked angry. He pulled out the mace, took a step back, and launched an attack again. Mingdi! The mace is wrapped with red lightning. A shockwave came crashing down at an extremely fast speed. Oh! The blast instantly swept around, stirring up a large amount of smoke and dust. When the smoke cleared, Shen Yuan was still standing there with a relaxed look on his face and his arms still folded. That's it. Yamato was furious and simply turned into beastman mode. White hair grew all over its body and fangs grew on its face, making it look extremely terrifying. Yamato leaped high up, with a chill attached to the mace in his hand. Seeing this scene, the surrounding jailers and prisoners all shuddered in fear. Master Yamato, what happened? A jailer spoke tremblingly. Go and inform Lord Babanuki. Someone said something that made everyone alert instantly. Boom! Yamato suddenly fell down, and the name of the move came out of his mouth. Bing Zhu Zhan. Yamato once used this attack to completely shatter the top of the mountain. Chiang! Shen Yuan drew his sword to block, and pushed it away casually. The heaven-swallowing blade flashed, and when it appeared again it was already close to Yamato. Yamato's body trembled and he immediately fought back. Jing Shan! Its body was suddenly covered with ice crystal armor. Clap! Tian Tun smashed the armor and penetrated directly into his body. Shen Yuan still had a calm expression on his face. He turned the blade over and thrust it upwards along the wound. Yamato felt the severe pain in his chest and coughed up blood for the third time. Vomit! The blade cut through Yamato's entire body like a piece of paper, leaving a long wound. This scene shocked everyone. It also surprised Babanuki, who arrived late. Vomit! Yamato covered his abdomen, looking weak, and vomited blood from his mouth. What? Do you want to continue? Trash! Yamato wanted to speak, but the blood gushed out of his throat and he could not speak. He felt the vitality in his body draining away. She understands. This time he was in trouble because he was too arrogant. Kaido's son wants to kill Kaido, what a joke. He put away Tianzhu again and looked at Yamato with disgust. You don't interest me at all. Killing you would dirty my hands, you naive little girl. Shen Yuan clashed his fists together, and an unparalleled momentum suddenly burst out. This black air wave swept in all directions, like the breath of a devil, making anyone who saw it feel a chill in their bones. This will definitely teach you a profound lesson. After finishing speaking, his figure disappeared again, appearing in front of Yamato as if repeating the same mistake. Oh! The kick was like a razor, hitting Yamato's face hard. Yamato instantly exited his orc form, and his body slammed into the mountain like a broken sack, and there was no movement. Defeat the plot character Yamato and get bonus skill points too. Go and have a look quickly, or he might die if he's late. After Shen Yuan finished speaking, his figure blurred in an instant and he disappeared from the spot. Babanuki finally reacted and with a serious face he directed everyone to start the rescue. How about it? Babanuki asked the doctor about the condition seriously, his face full of worry. He wasn't worried about Yamato's life or death. Yamato's death in the quarry has something to do with me, the warden. There is no danger to life, but the situation is not optimistic. Master Yamato was seriously injured, and if he didn't have the power of the fruit, he would probably have died. The doctor sighed and said that the patient would definitely not die, but there was a possibility that he would be in a coma for several months. Master Yamato is now hanging by the power of the fruit and can't die. Now we need to perform surgery to sew up this wound. After finishing speaking, everyone looked at the wound. There was a bloody gash from the abdomen to the neck, deep enough to see the bone. Everyone who saw this scene gasped. If you go a little higher. Babanuki didn't dare to think about it, nor did he deserve to think about it. Perform surgery immediately. Chapter 66. You will die sooner or later. On the other side, the city of flowers. Brother Enelu, did Brother Shen Yuan really defeat Kaido? Enel smiled and nodded, of course, I saw it with my own eyes. Ayu asked again, is Brother Shen Yuan injured? Injured. Enel smiled bitterly and shook his head, and was thrown to the ground, but it was not a big deal. No. Since I became Master's disciple, I have never seen Master get hurt. Ah! So powerful! Whoosh! While the two were talking, a figure fell from the sky with a kitten in his arms. The kitten is all white, with smooth fur but covered with scars. Master, how did you get a kitten? Enel looked confused. How could he carry out such a secret assassination mission and pet a cat at the same time? I saw this kitten by chance. There were several wild animals under the tree, and this cat was on top of the tree. As Shen Yuan spoke, he had a strange expression on his face, wavering between being able to hold it together and not being able to hold it together. Those beasts were right under the tree, and they even started mating. I couldn't stand it, so I went over and roasted them. Enelu took a step back, startled. Master, are you sure it's not vaporization? Is it barbecue? Shen Yuan's face froze, but he also looked calm. It's almost the same, it's almost the same. Enel wiped the cold sweat from his forehead, looking speechless. If that breath doesn't flatten the entire forest, I'm not a man today. How is it? Did you see the warren? Shen Yuan changed the subject and started asking about serious matters. We will probably leave this afternoon. What should we do? Shen Yuan was lost in thought while stroking the kitten in his arms. The kitten seemed to feel Shen Yuan's caress and purred comfortably. Hulu, Hulu. Let's give it a name. What do you two think? Enilu's face darkened. We are talking about business. While they were talking, a tiny electric current suddenly appeared in the kitten's body. Fur tribe. Shen Yuan said in surprise. From the characteristics, it is indeed the case. Enel looked at the kitten with curiosity and disbelief. Why not call him Thor? Shen Yuan immediately decided on the name and stroked the kitten's body again. Hearing this, Enel said with an unhappy look. Master, I remember you said Thor is something, the god of thunder, right? Shen Yuan nodded silently. Enelu. Ayu looked thoughtful, looked at Thor, then looked at his dog Komakiyo, and seemed to realize something. Brother Shen Yuan, it seems like the two of them don't get along. Shen Yuan looked at Ayu's innocent little face and a gentle smile appeared on his face. It's okay, let them have some contact. Say it. He stared blankly at Komakiyo, whose tail was erected, and then at Thor, whose tail was shaking wildly in his arms. The truth has come out. Okay, don't be angry. I'll be your companion from now on. Having said that, Shen Yuan stopped talking and turned around and walked towards the general's mansion. Let's follow too. Enel picked up Otama and Komakiyo quickly followed behind him. In a moment. After handing Thor to Ayu, Shen Yuan looked at the general's mansion in front of him with a thoughtful look on his face. I heard that Aim no Habakery has been left to Momonosuke by Odin, so only Inma is still in her hands. Say it. He kicked open the door of the general's mansion and walked straight in. Several guards stepped forward to intercept him, their eyes full of fear. Could it be that he took advantage of the disappearance of Kurozumi Orikai to come to the general's mansion to cause trouble? Just as he was thinking about it, one of the guards was squeezed to death by Shen Yuan using the gravity of the black hole, and he turned his attention to another person. What? You want to intercept again? The guard looked left and right, and finally shook his head heavily. No, 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 please. The guard looked flattering and respectful, as if he had seen his own father. Okay, then I'm welcome. After finishing speaking, another black hole's gravitational force instantly pulled him underground, and he immediately disappeared in front of the gate of the general's mansion. Enelu, Xiao, the two of you wait outside. After saying that, Shen Yuan flashed into the inner hall and disappeared. Outside the door, Kyo's hero, who had arrived late, looked at the two children with suspicion and fell into deep thought. Who are you? Why did you come to the general's mansion? As these words came out of his mouth, a hint of murderous intent rose in Kyojiro's eyes. We are. Enel didn't finish the second half of his sentence. He looked at the guards beside Kyo's hero and raised his eyes. Kyo's hero understood and drove his men around him out of the general's mansion, staring at the young man in front of him with a serious face. Please go to the inner hall. My master is there. After saying this, Enel stopped talking, as if nothing happened to him. Inner hall? That's where the courtesan Xiao Ziyai is. Cold sweat broke out on Kyojiro's forehead, but he still asked again. Who is your master? Grim Reaper? The god of death? Is it Lord Shen Yuan? Kyojiro's expression became extremely interesting, showing surprise, delight, and even panic. My master has something to discuss with your family. Enelu spoke again, perfectly completing Shen Yuan's instructions. I'm going right now, I'm going right now. As he said that, Kyo's hero suddenly turned around and ran straight into the inner hall. At this time in the inner hall, Shen Yuan looked at the courtesan Xiao Ziyai in front of him with a look of surprise. Such a beautiful lady, truly a beauty on earth. She has beautiful long emerald-colored hair, combed into a princess's hairstyle, with delicate features and dignified behavior. Wearing a pink flower headdress and a gorgeous kimono, she exudes a noble and elegant temperament. May I ask what you want from me? Xiao Ziyai tried her best to hide her inner panic, looked at Shen Yuan calmly and spoke slowly. Shen Yuan did not answer the question directly, but took out the second-generation kaititsu from his waist. It waved before his eyes. Do you know the owner of this knife? When Xiao Ziyai saw the knife, her face instantly turned pale. What are you talking about? At this moment, Kyo's hero rushed to the inner hall, looked at the scene in front of him, and cold sweat broke out on his forehead again. Lord Death, what are you doing here? Kyo's hero did not dare to be careless at all and drew his knife from his waist. At this moment, the atmosphere on the field suddenly became tense. Don't get excited. This sword was given to me by Senior Tengu. After he finished speaking, Shen Yuan took out another creed, which he had searched from Sukiyaki. Kyo's hero took the note with trembling hands, slowly unfolded it, and a few lines of small words on it suddenly appeared in his eyes. Wait a little longer, wait a little longer. In 20 years, a savior will surely come to save us. Please ensure the safety of the Kojiki family. After reading the note, Kyojiro's hostility towards Shen Yuan eased a lot. After reading it, he handed the note to Xiao Ziyai. Xiao Ziyai took the note with trembling hands and glanced at it. It really is my grandfather's handwriting. So, you were commissioned by Tengu Senpai. That's right. I also killed Kurozumi Orikai and seriously injured Kaido. As soon as these words were spoken, both of them were extremely shocked. So, the Kurozumi Orikai wasn't missing, but was killed by you. Kyo's hero muttered to himself, seeming to be very happy. Shen Yuan secretly rejoiced, look. Anyway, you will all die in Wano country in the end, sooner or later. It would be better for you to contribute to me so that I can improve my strength. At this time, Xiao Ziyai, who had been silent all the time, spoke. Why couldn't you kill Kaido? Shen Yuan had already thought of an answer to this question. I was in the middle of a fierce battle with Kaido, but unexpectedly, Charlotte Linlin, one of the 4 emperors, intervened, so I had no choice but to retreat. Xiao Ziyai nodded with a look of disappointment, as if she believed it firmly. Then why did you come here? Chapter 67. Respect the dead. What is your purpose in coming here? Xiao Ziyai asked tentatively. Intention. Shen Yuan held his chin and fell into deep thought. To be honest, I'm very interested in one of Odin's swords. As he spoke, Shen Yuan slowly pulled out the second-generation kaititsu. The second generation of kaititsu was held in Shen Yuan's hand, and the demonic energy that would have originally backfired on his body. At this moment, she was actually obedient and even had a bit of trying to please Shen Yuan. When Kyo's hero saw this scene, his eyes became extremely surprised. Can you control the demon sword? As you can see, I can control all the demon swords in this world. Senior Tengu once said that there is a sword called Yan Mo, which is also a demon sword. Having said this, even a fool would understand the purpose of Shen Yuan's visit. Xiao Ziyi was a little unsure and glanced at Kyo's hero, who was shocked beside her. Kyo's hero here was also caught in a struggle between his conscience and his desires. Although Yanma cannot be called a national treasure, it is also a relic left by Lord Odin. If you can promise us to help us kill Kaido, then we can indeed give you Yama. After finishing speaking, Kyo's hero signaled to Xiao Ziyi with his eyes, asking her to help say a few words as well. Xiao Ziyi nodded in understanding, and her originally calm expression became pitiful, as if she was a virgin who had been defiled. Mr. Death, if you can hold the famous sword Yanma, can you kill Kaido? Shen Yuan still held his chin, nodded and replied. Of course, it is my duty to slay demons and monsters. Xiao Ziyi was speechless and stood there in a daze. Ignoring his expression, Shen Yuan continued to speak. I promise you, if you hand over Yan Mo to me, I will definitely help the Kojiki family and help you successfully establish the country of Wano. After one sentence, the mood of both of them changed a little. Xiao Ziyi was immediately excited, and her blushing little face told it all. With the second generation Kaititsu and the maxim written by his grandfather himself, this matter is about 80% true. Kyoshiro's face was even more fanatical, and the emotions that he had been suppressing for many years suddenly burst out at this moment. You are truly a savior sent by God. Kyoshiro became more and more excited as he spoke, and drops of crystal tears fell from the corners of his eyes. Don't get excited. Can you let me have a look at Yan Mo now? Xiao Ziyi finally reacted. He leaned down and pressed his little hands on the floor. There was a secret compartment on the floor with a mechanism on it. The mechanism was easily opened by Xiao Ziyi, and the secret compartment in the ground slowly opened. In an instant, an extremely exquisite samurai sword was held up by a sword stand and slowly appeared in front of several people. Shen Yuan's eyes lit up. What a good knife! What a good knife! One of the swords is purple all over, and the blade has a faint glow, which looks very scary. Yan Mo was picked up by Xiao Ziyi and handed to Shen Yuan solemnly. He took it and slowly pulled it out of the sheath. Waves of demonic energy suddenly erupted. It is constantly eroding the vital energy in Shen Yuan's body. The demonic aura of this sword is exactly the same as that of the second generation Kaititsu. After finishing speaking, Shen Yuan also suddenly burst out his own power of death, suppressing this aura, and finally became the same as the second generation of Kaititsu. He was also easily tamed by Shen Yuan. What a fine knife! What a fine knife! Although Shen Yuan didn't like the evil spirit in the magic sword, the sword in front of him, the materials and craftsmanship used are of the highest quality. If possible, Shen Yuan also wants to get Hawkeye's black knife yet, just as a collection. His thoughts returned to reality, he put Yan Mo into the scabbard, and his expression gradually became serious. One more thing. Where is the tomb of sword god Shimatsuki Ryoma? I want to go and pay my respects. Both of them were stunned, looked at each other, and finally nodded. Come to me in the evening and I will take you there. Kyo's hero said meaninglessly. Shen Yuan nodded, looking forward to the action in the evening. Well, I won't bother you anymore. I'll leave now. After finishing speaking, Shen Yuan stood up and was about to walk out of the general's mansion when he was stopped by Xiao Ziyi. Please keep it a secret, if we leak it, we will all be hunted down by Kaido. Shen Yuan nodded heavily, said nothing, and pushed Xiao Ziyi's hand away. He turned around and strolled out of the general's mansion. Chuanjiro, what do you think of Mr. Shen Yuan? Denjiro shook his head slightly, but then nodded. His strength is indeed unparalleled, but with all due respect, I cannot see what his intentions are. Anyway, he killed Kurozumi Orikai and severely injured Kaido, so he shouldn't be our enemy, right? Denjiro nodded, agreeing. Hiri-sama, the responsibility of founding the country of Wano now falls on you. Kojiki Hiri took a deep breath and leaned forward slightly. It still requires everyone's efforts. I have only come this far thanks to the support of my parents. After this incident, members of the Kojiki family hiding in the territory of Wano country began to move. Shen Yuan walked out of the general's mansion. I took a deep breath of fresh air outside and felt much better. Master, is everything done? Enelu asked. Well, it's done. We'll be staying here until the evening, so let's go eat first. Ao's little face was instantly filled with surprise. Great! I want to eat red bean soup. Woof woof. Woof woof. Enelu was also embarrassed, his face flushed and he said, I want to eat apple pie. I have plenty of money, let's go. After he finished speaking, Thor jumped onto Shen Yuan's shoulder and kept licking his fur. Meow. Evening. In a hotel, Ao has fallen into a deep sleep. Enelu sat opposite Shen Yuan, also planning something. Enel, what are you looking at? No, I just want to see if my seeing and hearing color can be improved. What a hard-working kid. Shen Yuan was not idle either. He took out a rag and kept wiping his tianyan, thinking secretly in his mind. How long has it been since Moria was defeated? Could it be that Longma's tomb had been dug up long ago? As I was thinking this, a knock on the door suddenly came into the room. A waiter trembled as he entered the room. Looking at Shen Yuan who was wiping the knife in front of him, he trembled and said, Sir, someone is looking for you outside. They said they have an appointment. Shen Yuan sheathed his sword, slowly stood up and looked at Enelu. Take good care of Xiao. I'll be back soon. Enel understood and nodded. He walked out of the room and saw the waiter with a fawning look on his face. He reached into his pocket and a few baileys fell into Xiao's hands. Lead the way. The waiter smiled even more after receiving the tip, and took Shen Yuan all the way to the backyard of the hotel. Sure enough, there was a figure in the backyard at this moment. Mr. Death, let's go. Denjiro waved towards Shen Yuan. Upon hearing this, Shen Yuan put on a playful smile on his face, and followed Chuanjiro and disappeared into the night. The two walked side by side and came to a cemetery. The cemetery is very spacious, and most of the people buried here are ancestors of the Kojiki family from generation to generation. The only exception is Ryoma, whose heroic deeds are still being told about even now. Please. Denjiro led Shen Yuan to Ryoma's tombstone. The tomb of Shimatsuki Ryoma. The tombstone was intact, with no signs of having been tampered with. Okay, then you can go in and take a look. Denjiro frowned. What happened? The black spikes pierced through Denjiro's chest. A large amount of blood spurted out, making his consciousness blurry. You. Denjiro's expression suddenly became extremely terrified, as if his wife had been stolen. He vomited blood and his face was as pale as paper. Not only will I kill you, I'll also let you watch me dig up Odin's grave. After he finished speaking, waves of dark energy surged out again and began to search for Odin's body underground. Yes. Shen Yuan's eyes lit up. Is it Chu Shui? A large black hand lifted Chu Shui in front of Shen Yuan. Although there was dust on the Chu Shui in front of him, he could sense that this knife was no ordinary item. Denjiro finally understood after seeing this. Could it be, that you are so close to His Highness because of the famous sword? Ahem. By the way, your Tengu senior also died in my hands, be thankful. Without waiting for him to speak, Denjiro suddenly felt a surge of pressure in his body, and it became difficult to breathe. His consciousness gradually blurred. Ugh! Ugh! Denjiro was immediately twisted and deformed by the terrifying pressure of the black hole, and was squeezed to death in a moment. Kill the plot character Denjiro and get 3 skill points. Forget it, respect the dead. Saying. The remains of Denjiro and Odin were sucked deeper into the ground, where they were crushed and transformed into nutrients for flowers and plants. His figure flashed and disappeared into the night. Chapter 68. Collusion. The next day, Shen Yuan and his party finally left Wano country. To be more precise, Enelu and the others returned to the border island. However, Shen Yuan rushed to Kaido's lair again to do something important. Now, in Ghost Island, Kaido was flirting with Black Maria, and he didn't show much emotion even though his daughter was about to die. Maria, you have a beautiful face, like a flower in spring. Maria smiled coquettishly and said, Lord Kaido, I look so beautiful today, and you look so handsome too. Ahahaha. What a wonderful day. Lord Kaido, please don't do that. It's still broad daylight. The two sides twisted together and started playing on a large stone bed. Kaido was about to take the next move, but his hand on Maria's leg froze. Why is this little ghost haunting me? Why are you here again? I have already delivered the sea stone, and I will slowly make up for the rest later. Shen Yuan slowly emerged from the shadows with 3 famous swords on his waist. Kaido, there is a good thing and a bad thing, which one do you want to hear first? Black Maria's pretty face flushed with impatience and anger in an instant. He sat up from the stone bed and looked at Shen Yuan in astonishment. Instantly, the feeling of a shrew scolding on the street filled her body. Are you sick? How did you suddenly appear in Lord Kaido's base? You. Before Maria could finish her words, a huge black hand grabbed her body. The originally tall Black Maria was suspended in the air by a big hand, and her expression gradually became one of horror. Did I ask you to speak, bitch? Shen Yuan clenched his fist and exerted force suddenly with his huge hand. The sound of bones breaking spread in all directions. What? Maria suddenly let out a scream. Kaido frowned when he saw this scene, but he didn't dare to say anything. He said gloomily. Let me tell you the good news first. Shen Yuan smiled, but did not loosen his grip on Maria. Instead, he spoke solemnly. 9 red scabbards, do you know? Kaido was a little surprised when he heard this. Those little bugs? You came in contact with them. The former smiled calmly and continued. I killed Ashuradaji, one of the 9 red scabbards, and Denjiro, who was hiding under your command. As for the evidence, I have destroyed it. Kaido's face suddenly darkened. It's a good death for these remnants of Odin, a good death. Of course, I also killed Odin's father. As he spoke, he took the Nidame Kairitsu from his waist and waved it in front of Kaido. Why did you do this? Why? Shen Yuan smiled and continued, shouldn't the accomplices of that useless Odin deserve to die? Kaido remained on guard and looked at Shen Yuan with suspicion. Shen Yuan didn't say anything more and told Kaido everything about how he had deceived Xiao Ziyi. Kaido was stunned by this incident. So, you are on the opposite side of the Kojiki family. Of course, and I'm tracking down Kojiki Momonosuke's whereabouts. How about coming with me? Wipe out all these damned people. Kaido fell into deep thought after hearing this. Seeing Kaido stroking his beard and lost in thought, Shen Yuan turned his gaze to the side. At this moment, Maria, with a look of pain on her face, was struggling constantly, but her expression was still angry. You stinky bitch, do you know your own worth? How dare you challenge me like that? As he spoke, Shen Yuan controlled the black giant hand to stretch Maria's limbs out, forming a big shape. Shen Yuan pulled off her clothes, revealing her fair and tender skin. There were several bandages wrapped around its chest, and its lower body had long since turned into a spider's underside, which looked very disgusting. Shen Yuan held his chin and began to admire Maria's figure. Kaido, who was standing by, saw this scene and suddenly felt as if a green grassland was growing above his head. A dark spike wrapped in armed color instantly pierced Maria's abdomen. Vomit! Maria spat out a mouthful of blood, her eyes full of horror. Facing this man, he had no power to resist. What? You stinky bitch, are you still butting in? As he was speaking, another sharp spike pierced his left arm. What? Maria screamed again. Watch your mouth! Shen Yuan's face gradually became gloomy, and even a hint of imperceptible murderous intent rose in his eyes. Kaido changed the subject in time and said, Lord Death, I have thought about this matter carefully. Oh! I can cooperate with your actions. What do you want to do? Shen Yuan did not answer immediately, but raised his hand high. A large number of dark spikes suddenly appeared in the sky. Then there was a buzzing sound, and a large number of spikes accompanied by strong whines pierced straight through Maria's body. That's it for now. Keep your stinky bitch under control, Kaido. Kaido nodded with a gloomy face and did not refute. Seeing that even her own Lord Kaido was so afraid of the person in front of him, Maria couldn't help but feel regretful. Why do I have to be so mean? Maria lost consciousness and fainted instantly after being untied. Defeat the plot character Black Maria and gain 2 skill points. After handling the emergency, Shen Yuan turned to look at Kaido and slowly said. I plan to eliminate a wave of Kojiki remnants. The world government is looking for me recently. So you have to cooperate with me in acting and fabricate the news that I am seriously injured and missing. Kaido raised his eyebrows. So simple? Okay, I agree. There is one more thing. The Warren of Flower Capital is the most beautiful woman in Wano country. Her real identity is Odin's daughter. So you have to let him be elected as the general of Wano country to stabilize the situation. Kaido was somewhat surprised when he heard this. After being surprised, he nodded without any objection. When do you plan to start? After I kill the 9 heroes hiding in Wano country. After saying that, Shen Yuan's body floated away and disappeared in front of Kaido. Kaido sighed and turned to look at Maria. I am really angry but dare not speak out. When has Kaido ever suffered such humiliation? It's always me who bullies others, and this time someone rode on me and made me poop. I'm so angry. Kaido roared in anger. At this moment, he thought of an old acquaintance. Kaido picked up a den mushi and had an evil idea in his mind. Hello? Ling Ling. You didn't come last time. Was it because something happened at home? The lady on the other end of the phone was stunned for a moment, but then she seemed to have thought of something and became extremely furious. You think you're funny? Your men are all useless, and you still want me to send someone to die? Kaido scratched his fingers in embarrassment. At that time, I didn't expect the opponent's attack to be so swift. I certainly didn't think it through at the time, but this is a great opportunity. At this point, Kaido informed Big Mom of all of Shen Yuan's demands. Really? The aunt was still skeptical. It's true. Shen Yuan just left not long ago. The aunt suddenly became crazy. Well. I'm going to catch him. Then let him be my husband and have children with me. Such a child must be of excellent character. Listening to Big Mom's mumbling, Kaido was speechless. Anyway, wait for my news in a few days. This time, I will completely eliminate Shen Yuan. The aunt's thoughts were also pulled back to reality. Compared with his previous doubts, at this moment he did not hesitate at all and agreed immediately. Good. Kaido, I will wait for your news in Wangguo. Kaido laughed heartily and agreed happily. After this matter was settled, he changed his previous unhappiness. It feels so good. Kaido laughed wildly, and his smile contained a hint of meaningful sarcasm. Tell someone to bring in some jars of wine. I want to drink to my heart's content. Chapter 69. Fruit Development. Perfect State. On the Moby Dick, Shen Yuan stood on the deck with his hands in his pockets, his eyes deep and distant. Gulala. The little devil is back. What's wrong? Kid? Something wrong. Whitebeard's hand, which was drinking, suddenly stopped and he looked at Shen Yuan in confusion. It's nothing serious. It's nothing serious. Say it. Shen Yuan sat down cross-legged and picked up Whitebeard's huge wine glass. However, he ignored Whitebeard and instead focused on his own blackjack skills. As everyone knows, each fruit can be developed to an awakened state. But is the awakened state really the pinnacle of the fruit's ability? As he said that, Shen Yuan couldn't help but open his skill bar. There was a very conspicuous description below the system skill bar. When the fruit ability reaches level 10, it can be used proficiently. When the fruit ability reaches level 15, it is awakened. When the fruit ability reaches level 20, it is in perfect condition. Perfect condition. Shen Yuan frowned deeply. Could it be that his strength is like that of the 5 elder stars? Shen Yuan was very conflicted between the dark fruit and the candle illuminating fruit. I look forward to the battle that will follow. I believe Kaido will not let me down. After saying that, Shen Yuan glanced at Whitebeard. He slowly turned around and walked off the boat, silently walking to the border island that had been mostly rebuilt. Whitebeard scratched his head, feeling confused. Entering the island, Shen Yuan took a quick glance and saw Enelu and the others who were practicing hard. Even Xiao was having a great time playing with the cats and dogs. How's it going, Xiao? Are you feeling comfortable here? When Xiao saw that it was Shen Yuan who came, she was very happy. She took 2 quick steps and opened her arms to hug him. Ouch! Shen Yuan picked up Xiao and touched her little face lovingly. Brother Shen Yuan, can you teach me some kung fu? I want to be like Brother Enelu. Xiao opened her big watery eyes, full of desire. Okay, but it's very hard. Can you bear it? Enelu and Joan, who were standing aside, had gloomy looks on their faces. You favor girls over boys, right? Double standards, right? I just... However, Shen Yuan did not want to train Xiao because he was not suitable for fighting, let alone experiencing life and death on the battlefield. Because he is Xiao, a little girl with a tragic fate. The same is true for Enelu, Jean, and others, but they have enough belief to become stronger. When you grow taller, I will teach you something. After saying that, he put Xiao on the ground and slowly walked towards the forest. Xiaohu's face was full of joy. If I only grow a little taller, I can become a charming female ninja. Hey! Brother Shen! Hey! Old Ma! Marco smiled awkwardly and walked forward, looking at Shen Yuan with a longing look on his face. It was like a pervert found his target on the subway. Brother Shen, can my armament haki be further improved? We'll talk about these things later. I have something important to do. Marco was surprised and asked, what's the important matter? Of course I will continue to develop my devil fruit and bring it to an awakened state. Shen Yuan told the truth, but Marco was no longer calm. Developing a devil fruit to an awakened state? This is the first time I've seen a natural fruit awaken. Can I see it? In the eyes of Marco and other captains, Shen Yuan currently only has one devil fruit ability. Of course, it is common sense that one person can only eat one devil fruit. But what they don't know is that Shen Yuan has 5 kinds of fruit abilities. And they can all be integrated and used in conjunction with each other. Of course can. After all, Shen Yuan and Marco followed him into the back mountain. The moment he stepped into the back mountain, Shen Yuan silently maxed out the dark fruit. Suddenly, his body began to change. Waves of dark energy spread out uncontrollably and began to devour everything around them. Unlike the previous gravity, this time the black hole power seems to be taken directly from the universe. The powerful gravitational force of the black hole exploded again, crushing the surrounding ground and blasting out a huge pit with a diameter of dozens of meters. This is not the end. A small black hole suddenly appeared behind its body. Just one look and you'll see. This black hole seems to contain everything in the universe. As Shen Yuan moved, the gravitational field followed his movement, uncontrollably suppressing all objects around him. Buzz! All surrounding objects, such as stones and trees, were crushed by gravity, and fragments flew everywhere. Open the characteristic giant power. Shen Yuan no longer suppressed the restless energy in his body. Wild power was released, and a tall Grim Reaper suddenly appeared behind him. Unlike the previous death state, this time it is more like a demon. The whole body skin is black and clearly visible to the naked eye. The incarnation of darkness. The Black Armored Giant. Shen Yuan named it the Black Armored Giant God. This is a combination of the power of the God of Death and the dark fruit. It can defend and fight. After that, he removed the Giant God. Experiment with your new abilities instead. The incarnation of darkness. The first form. The Fistbone Giant. After finishing speaking, a tall dark giant suddenly appeared behind him, with the color of armament and dominance covering his entire body instantly. Both eyes are small black holes, flashing with faint light. Darkness incarnates. Second form. Devouring Arrow. Another transformation. This time, the giant's arm suddenly shrank, and streams of dark energy formed into a bow and arrow. The arrows are composed of dark power covering the armament color, wrapped in extremely violent energy. Domineering. Devouring Arrow. Shen Yuan roared. The giant behind him suddenly shot out a black arrow. The arrows flew straight towards the sea. The speed was so fast that it even produced sonic booms. Boom! It was like a small nuclear explosion, instantly squeezing out the sea within a radius of several hundred miles. Boom! The surrounding sea water flowed back in and filled the hole. Call! Shen Yuan exhaled a breath, very satisfied. The sea really has no tears to cry. The explosion here instantly attracted everyone to watch. When the crowd saw the black giant who was over 100 meters tall, the guy holding the bow and arrow just finished attacking, and everyone's jaws almost dropped to the ground. Marco! What's going on? Vista asked suspiciously. That's Brother Shen, the ability of the awakened dark fruit. When everyone heard this, they froze again. Enelo admires him even more. And also a little envious. It's only been a few days since I found the dark fruit. Master's fruit ability has already awakened. The other captains were all amazed. This made Marshal D. Teach, who was hiding in the crowd, very jealous. I definitely can't win in a head-on duel now. What's more, he can also seriously injure Kaido and fight Whitebeard to a draw. It seems that I can only find an opportunity to take action at night. Shen Yuan, who was far away, turned his head and met Tikai's vicious eyes. Teach suddenly felt a chill in his body and turned his head away to avoid the gaze. Ignoring it, Shen Yuan developed the third form again. Darkness incarnates. The third form. The edge that resists the sky. After finishing speaking, the black giant behind him changed again, and the bow in his hand slowly turned into a black sword, flashing with a murderous light. The tyrant. The edge of the sky. As soon as the words fell, a black sword energy wrapped in white lightning suddenly struck out. All objects along the way are sucked into the slashing strike to increase the power, and finally the sea surface is fiercely split open. Boom! In an instant, huge waves arose on the sea surface and flowed back in. The sea really has no tears to cry. The fruit ability experiment is complete, and it has taken back all the energy. Everything returned to calm, as if nothing had happened. What a terrifying power! Shen Yuan thought to himself. The perfect state of the dark fruit is so amazing, so what about the candle shine fruit when it is maxed out? Chapter 70. Assassination. In a blink of an eye, the time came to evening. Shen Yuan found Sasaki and started his sword forging career. Sasaki's face looked very rosy, as if he had won a 5 million lottery ticket. Lord Shen Yuan, these two swords. As he spoke, Shen Yuan took off the Yanma and Nidai Kaititsu from his waist and handed them to Sasaki. Can you forge a sword? Or maybe I should ask, can you forge a good knife? After hearing these words, Sasaki's eyes gradually became fanatical. Don't worry, I am a descendant of the Shimotsuki family. My full name is Shimotsuki Sasaki. Are you from the Shimokatsuki family? Shen Yuan held his chin and began to ponder. How about using sea stone as a material for forging a sword? Sasaki's eyes gradually became strange. Using sea stone to make a knife? Sea stone? I haven't tried it, but you can give it a try. Sir, aren't you a devil fruit user? It's okay, it's not me. Sasaki looked at the two swords in front of him and could tell at a glance that the second generation Kaititsu was forged by a member of the Shimotsuki family. Years ago. Because of his different ideas about sword forging, he was expelled from his family and eventually hunted down. That's why he was forced to join the Beast's pirates. Now that he has the opportunity to return to his old job, how can he not be excited? Of course you can forge a knife with sea stone, but it requires constant attempts, and it may require a large amount of sea stone. Don't worry about that, Kaido will deliver it when the time comes. Sasaki naturally agreed readily, as this coincided with his philosophy. The knife itself is a killing weapon. The materials required need to be constantly replaced. Are we going to stand still? This will only ruin the ancestral craft. I have ordered people to build a blacksmith shop for you in the back mountain. You can go there. Sasaki nodded and put the two knives back into Shen Yuan's hands. Night. The moon star is thin, and the black dragonfly flies south. The entire Moby Dick seemed to be shrouded in a shadow. Ga. 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 A black seagull slowly landed on the back of Shen Yuan's hand, with dark energy in its eyes. With his back against the railing, he began to accept the memories. Everything Seagull saw and heard in the past few days flowed into his mind like a trickle of water. The seagull was very docile and kept rubbing against his forearm. Go. The dark energy was completely withdrawn, and his pupils instantly regained focus. The color of the feathers also completely faded from black to white. The seagull did not leave, but still stood on Shen Yuan's arm, looking around blankly. Your mission is accomplished, and this is your reward. After saying that, Shen Yuan took out a handful of shrimps. Seagull's eyes lit up, and he began to point and criticize at Shen Yuan's palm. Shen Yuan looked at the seagulls eating and fell into deep thought. Tonight is destined to be a sleepless night. It's time to go back. He turned and entered the cabin, disappearing into the night. In another dormitory. In the dim light, it was clear that several people were discussing a topic. We have to act quickly, otherwise we will all suffer. Teach. You subdue him in a short while, and I'll wait for an opportunity to shoot him from behind. How about that? What? You want me to die? Teach had an indignant look on his face, and the sharp claws in his hands were slightly deformed by his pinching. As long as you can subdue him, I will definitely kill him. Yi Zhang's face was gloomy, and the image of Shen Yuan appeared in his mind. If I don't get rid of this person, I won't be able to vent my anger. Since you are seeking death yourself, you can't blame me. Shen Yuan has now become a thorn in Yi Zhang's side. How dare he defy Lord Odin's will? Anyone who violates Lord Odin's will be killed by me personally. There was an evil murderous intent hidden in his heart, and his previously peaceful face turned sinister and twisted at this moment. And so is Teach. He condescended to board Whitebeard's ship. He was waiting for an opportunity to seize the dark fruit, an opportunity to become famous in the world. Now that I finally have this opportunity, there are some deviations. That bastard actually ate the dark fruit. Since he wants to obtain the power of the dark fruit, he naturally knows how difficult it is to obtain the dark fruit. The scene I saw today. The level of development is no less than that of that old guy Whitebeard. Thinking of this, Teach felt a surge of fear at first, then excitement and joy. If I am lucky enough to kill Shen Yuan, I will definitely be able to find the dark fruit again. The dark fruit, the power contained in it is truly terrifying. Simultaneously, Teach also understood a shortcoming of the dark fruit. The user of the dark fruit will take double damage when attacked by physical techniques. The two looked at each other, and everything was said without words. In a moment, both of them were in disguise. Teach was wearing a nightgown, with two steel claws hidden on his wrists, faintly flashing with cold light. Izzo was wearing a black kimono, a mask on his face, and holding a flintlock in each hand. The two reached an agreement, each with their own hidden agenda. Sneaking towards the barracks where Shen Yuan was. Shen Yuan was not sleeping at this time. Instead, he opened his eyes wide and stared at the ceiling. Why do you suffer from insomnia? Also, why is my right eyelid twitching non-stop? He touched his eyelids helplessly, trying hard to close them and fall into a deep sleep. But the sudden change made Shen Yuan lose all desire to sleep. The observation haki that he unconsciously emitted captured two figures at that moment. Come yet. Shen Yuan's face turned cold. Can't sit still? To hide? Originally, I wanted to spare your life for Whitebeard's sake. Even, let you become the founding general of Wano country. But according to the current situation, he has lost this qualification. Squeak. The door was slowly pushed open, and two figures flashed in instantly. It was none other than Teach and Izzo in disguise. The two of them hid in the darkness and groped their way forward in the pitch-black room. You! Don't touch my butt! No, sorry, I didn't see it clearly. I'm not gay. Shen Yuan heard the voice and looked at the two people in front of him speechlessly. Hurry up! Izang urged impatiently. Understood. Blackbeard suddenly flew into the air. The figure suddenly appeared on Shen Yuan's bed. Die under my steel claws. Oh! Before Teach could react, his body was instantly grasped tightly by a giant black hand made of dark energy. Shen Yuan's hollow voice came from the depths of the room, making both of them look gloomy. Coming! Feeling the inescapable dark energy around his body, Teach simply gave up struggling. Oh! A gunshot rang out from the corner of the room. An armed-colored domineering bullet came through the air. Call out! The bullet grazed Shen Yuan's scalp. Another giant black hand came and tightly bound Izzo in the corner. Click! The room was suddenly brightly lit, and all the Shen Yuan crew members stood in different places in the room with extremely gloomy faces. Captain, what should we do? Joan hesitated. Enel swung the golden halberd in his hand, his eyes full of murderous intent. Where is the old man? Outside the door. Now. Whitebeard was standing outside the door, and he knew exactly what was happening in the room. Assassinating the vice-captain of the Whitebeard pirates is a serious crime. You have to handle this matter yourself, kid. After he finished speaking, the figure outside the door disappeared quietly. And at this moment, both Tikai and Yizhang had expressions of extreme fear. Chapter 71. Go to hell. If Teach's plan is followed. If your actions fail, you can use the Whitebeard pirates' ship rules to survive. But he could never imagine. Whitebeard, his own father. It seems that he takes the assassination of the deputy captain very seriously. How long has Shen Yuan been a member of the Whitebeard pirates? Are you just going to ignore the safety of this old crew member? Vice Captain. Please spare me, please spare me. I am a comrade of the Whitebeard pirates. Tikai still refused to give up and wanted to beg for mercy to awaken Shen Yuan's conscience. Conscience? Snort. Shen Yuan doesn't need that kind of thing at all. At this moment, his prestige directly overwhelmed all the team captains on the ship. Simultaneously, the commotion here attracted some people. People like Marco, Vista, and others stood outside the door and looked inside. What is Brother Shen doing? Vista looked around curiously. Teach and Zhang tried to assassinate Shen Ji, but Shen Ji discovered their plan. Vista opened his mouth in surprise and could even fit a watermelon in it. Assassinate Brother Shen? Brother Shen's strength. Having said this, everyone showed an expression of regret. Teach and Yi Zhang took a risk and challenged the authority of the deputy captain. In recent days, newspapers have frequently reported on Shen Yuan's deeds, and the name God of Death has spread to every corner of the world. The group looked at Teach and Zhu again, and no one spoke. No one sympathizes with them. I dare not sympathize. After spending half a year together, they all knew what kind of temper their vice-captain had. As long as you want to kill someone, no one can persuade them to come back. Tichi, how could you assassinate Brother Shen, how could you? Sachi stood outside the door, staring at the scene in a daze. Jaws saw the pleading look in Sachi's eyes, and his heart softened, and he was about to speak. At this time, he was stopped by Marco. What's wrong, Marco? Marco folded his arms and said sternly. Assassinations always have a purpose. Can't you see what Tikai wants to gain? What? Thatch and Jaws both looked at Marco at the same time. A famous sword is impossible. Teach doesn't know how to use a sword. As for the others, there is only one possibility, which is the dark fruit. Marco smiled evilly and continued, the dark fruit is known as the most evil fruit. Who wouldn't want it? As soon as they said this, they both saw the understanding in each other's eyes. This time, Brother Shen obtained the dark fruit. If it was you, me, or Thatch who got the devil fruit, do you think Teach would kill him? After finishing speaking, all the captains came to their senses and highly affirmed Marco's analysis. Vista said with a palpitating heart, that makes sense, Thatch, as the captain of Teach, you should be glad that you didn't find the dark fruit. Cold sweat broke out on Sachi's forehead, as if he had just been to the gates of hell. At this time in the room, Shen Yuan ignored Teach's plea for mercy and instead directly sealed his mouth. What? Can't wait? Want my dark fruit? A black dagger immediately appeared in Shen Yuan's hand. Just thrust hard into her thigh. Ah! The room was filled with Blackbeard's screams. Since you want the dark fruit so much, why don't you come and kill me? Say it. The dagger pierced his abdomen again. Blood gushed out and dripped onto the floor. You killed your companions for the sake of fruit. You are a scum who doesn't deserve to live. Shen Yuan raised his eyebrows. Large tracts of dark energy devoured Teach instantly. Together with the blood on the floor, it was compressed and disappeared by the gravity of the black hole. It was as if Blackbeard Marshal D. Teach had never appeared in this world. After dealing with this ugly guy, Shen Yuan once again turned his attention to Yi Zhang in the corner. Kojiki's retainer, Izu, right? Can I understand that you joined the Whitebeard pirates because you wanted to use Whitebeard's connections to revive the Kojiki family? Yi Zhang was angry and was about to speak. But he suddenly discovered that his mouth seemed to be suppressed by gravity and could not open. What? You killed someone just for your so-called Lord Odin? He raised his eyebrows and gave Izo a provocative smile. Let me tell you the truth, your so-called Lord Odin. I dug up its grave, what? You want to bite me? When Yi Zhang heard this, 2 blue veins bulged on his forehead. I wanted to curse Shen Yuan, but I couldn't open my mouth. You are speechless, right? You really want to scold me, right? Let me tell you again, I have killed 2 of the 9 red scabbards, so what? Are you here to kill me? You sissy? You sissy? Are you here to kill me? Yi Zhang took a deep breath, his heart already filled with anger. Tisk, 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 you Kojiki retainers are so loyal. I just said a few words to help the Kojiki family, and then he rushed over to let me kill him. Hearing Shen Yuan's provocation, both Yi Zhang and the other captains were moved. Killed the Kojiki retainers? Deceived the heir of the Kojiki family? Such a despicable, vulgar, and shameless person is actually someone my father values. Brother Shen, you really have a bad temper. Marco said awkwardly. Gg. Along with Shen Yuan's evil smile, a dark spike suddenly pierced into Yi Zhang's chest. Shen Yuan's originally kind expression suddenly turned into extremely angry. You dare to show your teeth to me? Have you thought about how to die? As soon as these words were spoken, the captains who were originally talking in low voices fell silent for a moment. Shen Yuan's body instantly erupted with murderous intent. An invisible aura spread throughout the room, making everyone tremble with fear. This is the murderous aura that can only be possessed after killing so many people. Before Yi Zhang could scream, extremely sharp black spikes rushed into Yi Zhang's arms like a violent storm. Bang bang bang! The spikes pierced through Zhang's body and inserted into the inner walls of the room. Kill the plot characters Marshall D. Teach and Izzo, and get bonus skill points 6. The dark energy gradually dissipated and began to automatically clean up the bodies at the scene. Shen Yuan opened his mouth and shouted, "Go do whatever you want, you guys? Do you want me to stab you?" Upon hearing this, all the captains ran away in fear, fearing that they would anger this plague god. Right? The Kojiki family, right? The 9 red scabbards, right? Just go to hell. Shen Yuan fell into unprecedented anger. Just because I talked about Odin, I wanted to kill myself? How ridiculous! The room returned to silence again, and only the hole in the wall could indicate that a battle had just taken place. At this moment, Whitebeard's voice came from afar. "Little boy, don't lose yourself in anger. He. I have been in a state of being lost and have never come out of it." Whitebeard. "Captain, what should we do next?" Qian was a little depressed. She had been gathering intelligence these days. There is no time to fight. Shen Yuan sat on a chair, his anger making him extremely irritable. To be frank, now Shen Yuan really wants to organize all his forces to hunt down the descendants of Guanjiu. Directly reward the other party with a huge gift package. But calm down, this can only remove the leaves on the surface, but not the roots underground. So, again, the meal must be eaten one bite at a time, and the road must be walked step by step. I will now proceed with the plan on my own. I'll give you 10 days off. You can go wherever you want. No matter how big the mess is, you have to solve it yourself. I don't want to have useless people under my command. Everyone nodded, with happy smiles on their faces. I'm going back to Sky Island. Enelu slowly clenched his fists and remembered the time when he was bullied. No killing of civilians, this is my bottom line. Yes. Chapter 72. One big gifts. A blink of an eye. A week has passed. Shen Yuan sat in the tent on the border island, drinking the tea that Khalifa made for him with a calm face. At this moment, the den mushi that had been silent all the time suddenly made a sound. Bulu, buletin, 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 buletin. Shen Yuan raised his eyebrows, took a sip of tea. I picked up the den mushi and heard a voice from the other end. Hello? Is this Mr. Shen Yuan? I'm He Song. Kawamatsu was holding a den mushi with black hair, which was Shen Yuan's exclusive den mushi. What's wrong? Shen Yuan responded calmly. We have organized our forces and have gathered at the head mountain. But... He Song seemed a little embarrassed when he said this. But what? A sly smile gradually formed on Shen Yuan's lips, and he began to think about how to kill with one strike. How to simply and violently take down the opponent. But Ashura boy seems to have disappeared. I don't know where he went, and I can't contact him. Shen Yuan was delighted when he heard this. Didn't it disappear? The bone residue was compressed into nutrients. It's okay. How many people came this time? Kawamatsu on the other end of the phone looked disappointed and continued. This time, I have summoned Lord Cat Viper and Lord Inuarashi here, as well as many warriors from the Kojiki family. I originally thought it would take some effort, but now the border defense of Wano country seems to be very negligent because Kaido is seriously injured. They simply confirmed our identities and let us in. After Shen Yuan heard this, his emotions gradually got out of control and he became uncontrollably ecstatic. But he still suppressed his excitement and replied calmly. Well, then you guys wait for me at Tou Shan. After hanging up the phone, Shen Yuan shook his head and stood up suddenly. What a great day! After he finished speaking, his figure flashed and disappeared out of thin air in the room. Kuri, Wano country. At this moment, hundreds of Kojiki's retainers gathered on the top of the mountain. Kawamatsu, the god of death you mentioned, will he really help us kill Kaido? When He Song heard this, he immediately patted his chest. Don't worry. Mr. Death killed Kurozumi Orakai and seriously injured Kaido. Don't you know about this? Cat Viper was stunned. Of course he knew about this. And I also know what Shen Yuan did. Blow up the judicial island and kill the intelligence members. How much courage and strength does this require? Thinking of this, Cat Viper temporarily put his mind at ease and began to look around. Have you found any trace of Ashura boy? He-song asked doubtfully. No. We the mink tribe are also searching for Ashura in Zhou. But there is no news. Ugh. He-song sighed heavily, and then as if he had thought of something, he murmured to himself again. I heard that Denjiro has also disappeared recently. He also. Cat Viper looked incredulous. Isn't Denjiro an undercover agent? Why did he disappear? Was he secretly killed by Kaido? Inuarashi, who had been silent all this time, finally spoke, his expression unusually gloomy. Will they all be killed by Kaido? This possibility cannot be ruled out. The three of them looked gloomy, but then they cheered up again. I believe that the god of death will be able to help me kill Kaido. At this time, Shen Yuan was floating high in the sky, and bursts of sneering laughter could be heard from him. Yes, Kaido will be killed sooner or later. But, before that, he. Without further ado, let's get started. Darkness Incarnate. Second form. After saying this, black energy instantly emanated from his body, forming a perfect Gundam. Raise your gun and shoot, he. The giant held a bow and arrow and quickly pulled the bowstring. A black arrow appeared. 1000 degrees of attachment. Devouring arrow. Combine extreme high temperature and black hole power. Call out. The arrow was fired out recklessly and suddenly shot towards the top of Taoshan Mountain. Whoosh whoosh. The arrows were so fast that they even made sonic booms. When the people on the mountain heard the noise, they all looked up to the sky. Look at this. Everyone was horrified. I said, that god of death is unreliable. Cat Viper used his hands to resist the wind pressure, and the other retainers did the same. Boom. Before anyone else could say anything, the black arrow arrived. Like a tailed beast jade, it fell heavily on the center of the mountain. Explode suddenly. In an instant, the extreme heat and the tearing of gravity. Devour all of Kojiki's retainers. Go to hell. He. One more shot. Shen Yuan looked excited, he didn't expect this thing to be so awesome. 1000 degrees of attachment. Devouring arrow. Another dark arrow shot out, with a temperature of 1000 degrees on the tip. The same power, the same position. Taoshan suffered another heavy blow. After 2 outbursts of violent power, no retainer of Kojiki could survive. As predicted. Everyone, including the 3 red scabbards. They were vaporized by the power of the arrow and disappeared immediately. Kill the plot characters Cat Viper, Inuarashi, and Kawamatsu to gain skill points 9. Mission accomplished, Shen Yuan clapped his hands. There is no discomfort in using this ultimate move myself. When the temperature is high, I feel the blood in my body surging. Other than that, there is no harm. If I give Mary Joa 2 shots, ha. This is a great gift from me to the Guanjiahe family. How is it? Do you like it? After finishing his work, Shen Yuan disappeared again. When he showed up, he happened to see Kaido and Maria together again. You bitch, you're recovering pretty fast? Old Deng is still going strong. Shen Yuan teased calmly and turned his gaze to Kaido. Kaido, the plan can begin now. Kaido didn't care about Shen Yuan's teasing and felt suddenly happy. Maria staggered to her feet, suddenly feeling frightened, and hid in the corner. He held his head in his hands, looking like a thief caught by his uncle. What's wrong with your dog? Is he mentally ill? Kaido's face darkened. Don't you know who is the reason why she is like this? Cough cough. Kaido coughed lightly to ease the awkward atmosphere. Shut up and speak directly. Kaido shut up immediately. A dragon face looks like it has been stuck in a coal mine. Okay, this is the location tonight, and I will be there as expected. After saying that, Kaido handed the information in his hand to Shen Yuan. He took it, glanced at the note, and destroyed it without hesitation. Don't forget, Xiao Zi became a general. Kaido nodded and said nothing. See you tonight. After finishing speaking, Kaido and Maria were the only ones left in the cave. Kaido glanced at Maria, who was holding her head in her hands, and her face turned red and white. In the end, I picked up the Den Mushi and called the ant directly. Well. Kaido, are you ready to take action? As soon as the call was connected, the ant on the other end spoke impatiently. Ah, Ling Ling. We are ready to attack tonight, are you all set up for the ambush? The aunt's tone was very unfriendly, and she spoke without hesitation. Kaido. This time I sent more than 10 of my sons. I even sent the 3 strongest people from the Charlotte family here. MMM. Upon hearing this, Kaido opened his dragon mouth and his arrogant laughter instantly spread throughout the entire Sky Island. I will also send out 3 big bosses and all the gift givers. This time, we must make sure that little brat never returns. Yet, I'm really looking forward to it. Something's wrong here. Shen Yuan was suspended in the sky. He heard clearly the conversation between Kaido and the Sao just now. Okay, the more people there are, the more excited I am. Come on. I'm going to kill them hard this time. Chapter 73. Death Arena. The country of Wano, the island of ghosts. The giant horned island, which looks like a ghost, is an evil place in the New World. There is an arena on the island below Onigashima. Because it is used to eliminate and select cotters all year round, it is affectionately called the Death Arena by the Beast Group. Here, one of the Sea Emperors, Charlotte Lingling, is lying in ambush here. The children of Charlotte also hid here, hiding in the surrounding rooms. The huge crowd of people almost filled the entire arena. Do we really need so many people in a room? Charlotte Dave was a little confused. Is it necessary to go to such lengths to arrest a newcomer who just went out to sea and had contact with the Revolutionary Army? Really necessary? You don't read newspapers, but you just open your mouth to make comments? Are you a keyboard warrior? Charlotte Owen spoke angrily, and continued to say to Deifu, I can beat 10 of you, do you understand? Deifu was a little indignant when he heard this. Hit me 10 times? 10 of us can definitely defeat the enemy. Owen looked at the dark night sky and suddenly felt inexplicably uncomfortable. Deifu saw this and asked in confusion, what's wrong with you, Owen? Owen waved his hand without saying anything, picked up the teacup on the table, opened his mouth and took a sip. Why does my right eyelid keep twitching? Deifu hesitated to speak. As the saying goes, a twitching left eye means good fortune, a twitching right eye means disaster. But given the current situation, I can only lie with my eyes open. Maybe it's time to pick up some money. If your left eye twitches, it's bad luck, but if your right eye twitches, it's good luck. Owen was happy. He was very pleased with what Deifu said, and the corners of his mouth raised uncontrollably. In the next room, Charlotte Katakuri is tall, muscular, and has long legs. He has short amaranth red hair and is sitting here with his legs crossed. The person next to him looked like an old witch. He has a big, red, hooked nose on his face, and besides that, there is a hideous scar on his face. This person is Katakuri's sister, Charlotte Brew. Brother, who are the enemies we are going to deal with this time? I don't know either. From the information in the newspaper, it can be seen that this person is very powerful and extremely difficult to deal with. Katakuri was playing with the coins in his hand, feeling a little panicked for no reason. With so many of us, we can definitely kill the enemy, right? Charlotte Bray asked again in doubt. Maybe. Seeing her brother looking troubled, Charlotte Brun stopped talking. She just quietly poured tea for Katakuri with a gentle look on her face. Purple hair, a scar over his right eye, and brown gloves. Charlotte Cracker, with her upper body naked, sat cross-legged on the ground, constantly twiddling a deck of cards with her hands. In my opinion, this Shen Yuan is just a name for nothing. Katakuri, are you worrying too much? He did not answer, but stared at the playing cards in Charlotte Cracker's hand. Which one do you think you would be as a chess piece for your mother? Upon hearing this, Cracker turned his gaze to the playing cards in his hand and fell into deep thought. I think that under my mother's control, I am at best AK. K. Cracker's face turned black. If you are AK, then I can't be Xiao Wang, right? It is the perfect interpretation of what Versailles means. That being said, Cracker said very fairly. In terms of overall strength, Katakuri, you are the undisputed king. Katakuri scratched his head embarrassedly, and his helpless look caught Brulee's eyes, which made her eyes even gentler. Cracker continued, as one of the 3 desert generals, I can be considered a little king, right? Charlotte Smoothie, who was standing nearby, couldn't help but chuckle when she heard this. This woman is tall, has blue eyes and silver hair, and is wearing a pink bodysuit. The most important is, Smoothie has long legs. That's really long. Cracker emphasized again, hee hee. I am the cookie man who ate the cookie fruit. Smoothie held up a red wine glass, took a sip and then said slowly, maybe, you can be considered a little king. Charlotte Cracker's face froze. Cracker. Weren't you a yin-yang master in your previous life? Smoothie smiled. Afterwards, he glanced out of the iron window with a look of anticipation. What are you expecting? Katakuri closed his eyes and said solemnly. I heard that he is the god of death. I also want to see what the difference is between my strength and the god of death. This time Katakuri shook his head and stopped talking. Now. The center of the Colosseum. Kaido stood here, holding a black mace in his hand, his eyes fierce and sharp. Kaido stood in the center of the arena, feeling extremely excited and happy. This time he must make Shen Yuan die here. Lord Kaido, are you sure you really want to do this? Jin was still a little worried. This fight took place right at one's doorstep. Lord Kaido, based on the strength of our opponent last time, Shen Yuan's strength is very likely to have surpassed yours. Kaido didn't care at all and wiped the sweat off his face. This was caused by his excessive excitement. Ah la 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 la. We have 2 Yonko and a bunch of cotters, and we still can't take him down. Yin shook his head helplessly, retreated back to the room, and waited quietly. It really does NT work. If Kaido is caught by Shen Yuan again, I can just beg for mercy. If all else fails, just drag Jack Quinn along to beg for mercy. I don't believe he has a heart of stone. Quinn looked at Yin, who had a serious expression on his face, and moved closer with curiosity. Why is the expression so wonderful? Awoo. Yin looked at Quinn's unusual behavior and immediately fell silent. He needs to think carefully about what bargaining chips he has to exchange with Shen Yuan for Lord Kaido's life. It is never numbers that can defeat the strong. Yin suddenly said this, and Jack and Quinn were both stunned. At this moment, Jack suddenly spoke up, Brother Jin, you are not worried about the safety of Lord Kaido. Yin nodded silently. To be honest, I also have a bad feeling about this war. I've been feeling this way ever since I was killed instantly by that bastard Shen Yuan last time. Yin patted Jack's shoulder for once, nodded heavily and seemed to agree with him. No way. Boss Kaido is not really going to die here today, right? Quinn, shut up. Quinn suddenly shut his mouth like a child who had done something wrong and said no more. The 4th Emperor Charlotte Lingling, because of her tall stature, has been floating in the sky, waiting for Shen Yuan's arrival with an expectant look on her face. Well, well, well. I'm really looking forward to it. When everyone is fully prepared. Whoosh! A black arrow wrapped with black and white lightning. Penetrating through the thick clouds, carrying huge energy, riding the wind straight to the arena below. Whoosh! Charlotte Lingling seemed to sense the attack, and a smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. He took off his hat. Napoleon! Napoleon suddenly turned into a big sword, which he held high up, and he was actually showing the posture of a hegemon. The Spear of Elbaf. Powerful to the country. A violent slash was launched. Heading straight towards the clouds in the distance. Weiguo's slash and the black arrow collided instantly. Boom! There was a sudden explosion. This perked up the spirits of everyone below the arena. Everyone rushed out of the room. At first glance, I saw the aftermath of the attack collision. Now, they all understand. This brutal battle has already begun from this moment. Chapter 74. The fight begins. Boom! Shen Yuan landed heavily on the ground of the arena, creating a big hole. He turned the Tian-swallowing sword in his hand, slowly put the knife back into the scabbard, and scanned the entire audience with a cold gaze. Haha! What a big scene! Boom! The old lady also fell suddenly from the sky, creating a big hole. MMM. What an interesting guy. Ignoring the sow's teasing, Shen Yuan smiled slightly. Then, let's get started. Say it. Black armor began to grow all over his body, like a demon crawling out of hell. Darkness incarnates. Black armor attached. The voice just fell. Shen Yuan suddenly took a step forward with his left leg and disappeared on the spot. Charlotte Defo was instantly grabbed by Shen Yuan's neck. It was swung violently in the air twice and finally fell heavily to the ground. Boom! Gravel flew and dust rose. MMM. What a frisky little brat. Big Mom instantly summoned Zeus and Prometheus and launched an attack. Stolen fire. Shen Yuan ignored the ant's attack. Instead, he kept shuttling back and forth among the army. According to Shen Yuan's words, it means to cut a wave of leaks first. A punch with extremely fierce power suddenly hit a lucky man's face. Oh! The lucky guy's head was smashed to pieces by a punch. Instantly, the smell of blood and pungent odor filled the entire arena. Chance! While everyone was stunned, Shen Yuan flashed and came to Charlotte Katakuri's side. He was shocked and quickly raised the trident to resist, but he was still a step too late. His observation color is higher than mine. Katakuri was extremely shocked and was knocked flying by Shen Yuan's punch. His body suddenly rushed backwards, smashing a room and creating a big hole in the wall of the arena. Whoosh! Another sound of breaking through the air came. Cracker trembled all over, and just as he was about to make cookie soldiers. But he was hit hard on the neck by a whip kick. Vomit! Cracker spat out a mouthful of blood, and felt the severe pain in his jaw, which made his whole body tremble. Shen Yuan's figure kept flashing among the crowd, making it difficult for Kaido and Big Mom to take action. It's really troublesome. The ant looked very angry. He suddenly roared. All troops retreat. Clear the battlefield. Once these words were spoken, the situation on the scene could no longer be controlled. Watching Shen Yuan rushing around with his fists. Whether it is the three big bosses or the three generals, they are all very afraid at this moment. Old friend. Don't go. Jack's tusks haven't grown out yet. Does he have to pinch off his tooth roots now? He was instantly furious. He stretched out his left leg and stepped on the ground to make cracks. Legs bent, weapons thrown high. Jack knelt on the ground with his hands clasped together. I was wrong, Brother Shen, stop hitting me, my tusks have only grown for a few days. Boom! Jack was symbolically kicked away by Shen Yuan and was actually kicked out of the arena. When he was in the air, he gave Shen Yuan a thumbs up. Look at his expression again, he looks relaxed. At this time, Jack did not feel disgusted, and even felt a little grateful. Jack had done it himself, so naturally he had to find someone else to do it. Shen Yuan raised his eyebrows and his eyes fell on Quinn. Feeling Shen Yuan's gaze, Quinn's legs softened. Quinn also knelt on the ground. Just now. This person smashed someone's head with one punch. Damn it. It's so scary. Brother Shen, look, I actually admire you very much. Can I also be kicked out of the arena? Shen Yuan stood there in a daze, with only one thought in his mind. No, buddy. Not only him. Even the Charlotte family cotters and many beast warriors were frozen in place. Is this really my right-hand man? Kaido fell into self-doubt, and his dragon face turned green with anger. Oh! Quinn was also kicked out of the arena and fell to the edge of the arena. Good. Quinn gave a thumbs up and then lay on the ground pretending to be dead. Ah! I'm dead. Kaido. Ant. Shen Yuan also discovered a problem. As long as you can shock your opponent, you can defeat him, just like you shocked Usopp a year ago. Here Shen Yuan was about to attack Jin. It has already entered the pterosaur state and flew out of the arena. As long as we are alive, Lord Kaido will not die. Yin firmly believed it. That's it. That's it. Thinking of this, he hurriedly flew to his colleague, also lying on the ground, pretending to be dead. I'm dead too, burn some paper if you have anything to worry about. Kaido. My three greatest fighting forces are gone just like that. Kaido's expression at this time is wonderful, black and red. Big Mom thought Kaido had an LED light bulb installed on his face. Oh! A loud explosion suddenly occurred. This made Big Mom and Kaido look over. This one glance suddenly saw. At this moment, Shen Yuan grabbed Charlotte Owen's head with one hand and pressed it hard to the ground. He changed his palm into a fist and punched him hard in the face. Oh! The sound of bones breaking was accompanied by screams, but the attack was far from over. The former raised one leg high up and stomped hard on his face again. Boom! This kick was like a giant pillar, embedding itself deeply into the ground along with Owen's head. Boom! When I pulled my feet out of the ground, I saw some human tissue still on the soles of my shoes, which was terrifying. Daifuku, who was lying on the ground, staggered to his feet and began to activate his fruit ability. The devil appears. Say it. He spat out a mouthful of blood and looked very weak. The demon suddenly appeared, and a lamp spirit like a soul was wandering in the air. Without receiving the attack command, he was already caught by Shen Yuan. Moment. The power of the god of death instantly suppressed the demon and crushed it on the spot. This scene fell into Deifu's eyes. His heart instantly turned despair and his face looked extremely gloomy. Whoosh! Shen Yuan's figure suddenly disappeared from the spot, and when he reappeared he was already in front of Deifu. Deifu thought it was not good and was about to run away. What came forward was a powerful side kick, heading straight for the stomach. Oh! Deifu was kicked into the shape of a Celsius symbol and was kicked high into the air. The figure in the dark night is like a full moon. Do you want to come and play too? Smoothie stood still the whole time. Is it finally my turn now? Thinking of this, Smoothie tried his best to suppress the fear in his heart. He raised the sword in his hand slightly, but it was still shaking. Boom! This moment seems to have stopped in time. Shen Yuan's powerful arm suddenly hit Smoothie's stomach. Puff! Smoothie spat out a mouthful of blood in disbelief. This feeling is like being attracted by a black hole. His body was uncontrollably clinging to his arms. Oh! 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 Shen Yuan just held Smoothie like this. He kept wandering around in the corridor of the arena, smashing the walls of several rooms. Squeeze! I haven't finished speaking yet. After the Iron Mountain leaning was over, Shen Yuan quickly jumped and turned around to appear behind him. Grab his neck. A shoulder throw was performed brazenly. Boom! Smoothie was stuck into the floor like an onion. Smoothie! Smoothie's twin sisters Charlotte Strong and Charlotte Snarman shouted at the same time. I forgot about you too. Shen Yuan disappeared again. In just a moment, Shen Yuan had already arrived behind the two women. You guys should go and keep her company, too. This voice seemed to come from the netherworld, and was deeply imprinted in the hearts of the two women. A beautiful knife flower flashed by, and the two women were killed directly in the throat. You are a liar. No. No. Let's go over and accompany my sister. After saying that, the two girls' eyes rolled back and they fell to the ground without a sound. Crack! Crack! At this moment, Shen Yuan was carrying Tunshan. He stepped on one of the corpses and looked at Kaido and Big Mom with an extremely arrogant look. Kaido, and that's Sao, just come and please me. Chapter 75. The Bloody Storm. After a bloody storm, only 3 people were left standing in the arena. They are Kaido, Big Mom, and Shen Yuan standing in a sea of corpses and blood. Little devil! You hurt so many of my children, I will make you pay with your life. The ant's rage has reached its peak at this moment. A dark blue aura burst out and rushed in all directions. What else can you do besides shedding seeds, Yuso? Shen Yuan took the lead and also emitted a black and white domineering aura to collide with it. Kaido's eyes widened with anger, and a red domineering aura suddenly emerged. The 3 auras collided with each other, and there was no difference in momentum. After the collision, Shen Yuan looked at Charlotte Lingling with an unfriendly look. You old sow, do you know that I want to kill you the most? After hearing this, Kaido did not feel uncomfortable at all, but rather felt secretly happy. His left and right arms were not injured. You are timid, it's good for you to be timid. Kaido couldn't help but reveal a weird smile and turned to look at Big Mom. Lingling! Why don't you go up and fuck him? If it were me, I would definitely go up and fuck him. Kaido! It's all because of you. The ant took a deep breath. At this moment, she could no longer control her anger and wanted to tear the little devil in front of her to pieces in an instant. Kid! Live, or die! Charlotte Lingling's eyes suddenly turned red, she raised her hands high, and white soul runes appeared all over her body. Shen Yuan smiled and stared at Charlotte Lingling with fierce and sharp eyes, the meaning of which was self-evident. The coercion of the weak is ridiculous, like a child's joke. Charlotte Lingling was extremely shocked. This is the first person who is completely unaffected by the spiritual pressure under his command. He hesitated and said, Kaido. We are facing a powerful enemy. We should join forces. Kaido nodded and said, of course. Nonsense. If we don't join forces, should I join forces with Shen Yuan? When Kaido thought of this, an idea flashed through his mind. Or, join forces with Shen Yuan? Devour this 4 emperors? But on second thought, cooperating with Shen Yuan is tantamount to seeking the skin of a tiger. Looking at Kaido, who was caught in a dilemma, Big Mom couldn't help but feel suspicious. Shen Yuan, who was eager to watch the fun, crossed his arms and said jokingly, "Hey, hey, old sow. Are you giving birth to these children to prepare for the attack on the M78 Nebula?" Old sow. When Charlotte Lingling heard this nickname, her rationality instantly disappeared. Earth explosion sky star. Shen Yuan roared, and all the broken stones and pieces on the ground, everything that could be used. They were controlled by it and sucked into the sky, gradually forming a big round ball. "Mom! Save me!" Daifu was sucked into the sky by gravity. Accompanying him are Owen, Smoothie, Cracker, Katakuri, and a group of minions. All were attracted into the sphere. The three big bosses looked at the scene happening in front of them and swallowed their saliva at the same time. "Quinn, luckily I gave in. If I had been blown up, I would have been ruined." "Jack, brother Quinn is right. Yin, I hope Lord Kaido can make it through this." "Jack, brother Jin is right." Shen Yuan raised his right hand high and sucked in all the seriously injured, unconscious or dead Charlotte members. "You dare to move? If you dare to move, I will blow you up." "Jack, brother Shen Yuan is right." "Ember. Quinn." The ant was afraid to act rashly and did not dare to do anything for a while. "You dare to blow it up? If you dare to blow it up, I will kill you. If you dare to move, I will explode. If you dare to bomb me, I will move. How dare you? No, there's no point in us talking like this. So, I have something to say, can you listen to me?" The ant raised her eyebrows and gently put down the Napoleon that she was holding high. "Then let's listen to what this little kid has to say first." But at this moment, the ball in the sky suddenly exploded. Shen Yuan roared. "Heaven hinders the earthquake star." A black arrow suddenly stabbed towards the sky, and Tianxing was hit instantly, exploding in the sky. Boom! This moment, it was as if a nuclear bomb dropped on an island exploded in the sky. When Charlotte Lingling saw this scene, her mouth opened wide and her face turned pale. At the same time, a figure hidden in a Nagashima is taking pictures crazily with a camera. "Big news, this is big news." This scene was photographed and recorded by Morgans, who was always observing the battlefield. "Because this picture is really very impactful." Morgans smiled and said. "Brother Shen Yuan really didn't lie to me. As long as I agree to his small request, I can get such explosive news." In an instant, broken limbs and arms fell from the sky like raindrops. Only a few people were able to keep their bodies intact and still be breathing. Of course, Shen Yuan did not kill them. For example, Shen Yuan temporarily let the three desert generals go. What Shen Yuan did to Charlotte Lingling was no different from the extermination of her entire clan. "Little devil! I'm going to kill you!" The former reacted instantly. He ran towards Shen Yuan at an extremely fast speed. He held Napoleon in his hand. Zeus and Prometheus beside him launched attacks continuously. Suddenly there was lightning and thunder, and a huge crack appeared in the sky. "We've finished the appetizers, now it's time for the main course." Shen Yuan once again grew black armor all over his body. He even specially transformed himself into a pair of sunglasses and wore it on his face, which made him look very cool. "Old sow, take my punch. You little bastard, take my knife." Oh! The fist and the knife suddenly collided with each other. Another incomparable aura burst out. "Look, this is a left fist." The former ignored Shen Yuan's words. There was only murderous intent in her eyes now. Full of murderous intent. Oh! With a burst of energy, the latter instantly moved to the side of the ant. A jab with a domineering color wrapped around it was thrown out quickly. Boom! The blow made his body unstable. This is the right fist. 1000 degrees of attachment. Another punch, hitting his brain hard. The armed fist wrapped in golden light suddenly smashed towards Charlotte Lingling's temple. When the fist suddenly hit his temple, there was a sudden burst of golden light, vaporizing his headscarf, hair, and eyebrows instantly. This huge force was sent into her body, and the old lady suddenly felt dazed. Despite this, he was able to survive by relying on the life-saving abilities of his armament haki and the soul fruit. Emperor's sword. Broken blade. Napoleon was covered in flames and chopped down fiercely at Shen Yuan. Boom! A trench was ploughed out on the ground. But the latter's attack was far from over. He moved swiftly again, and suddenly threw a perfect uppercut at the ant's chin. It's an uppercut. The sound of muscles exploding spread in all directions. Kaido just watched quietly without intervening, but instead was thinking about his own plan in his heart. Shen Yuan leaped into the air. Look! This is justice from heaven. A fist filled with a large amount of dark power instantly hit the ant's crown. Boom! The old lady was knocked unconscious instantly by 4 punches, but she was still standing. What a tough sow! Although the old lady withstood Shen Yuan's 4 punches, she also fell into a brief daze. However, in just a moment, Shen Yuan had already drawn the sword from his waist. Instantly, the black mist spread out like a wild beast that had escaped from a cage. One sword style. Black flash. The blurry figure suddenly chopped at the ant's chest with all its might. When he appeared again, he had his back to the old lady and shook off the blood on the knife. A hideous wound was cut on the old lady's chest, and blood was gushing out continuously. Old sow, is this all your strength? Shen Yuan held his chin, thinking so. After all, this was 10 years before Luffy set out to sea, 1520, so his strength must have been insufficient 10 years ago. Cough cough. Blood continued to flow out of the old lady's mouth. The Napoleon in his hand also fell to the ground with a clang. Shen Yuan suddenly had an idea, what reward would be given if he killed one of the 4 emperors? What if one of the 5 elders was killed? What if we kill the final boss? Shen Yuan fell into deep thought and couldn't help but look up. Looking back and forth between Kaido and Big Mom. Kaido's originally active mind was now extinguished, and only fear remained in his heart. No, you. I haven't finished speaking yet. The 3 big bosses in the distance had already rushed over. They all knelt down in front of Shen Yuan. Jack, brother Shen Yuan, please let Lord Kaido go. Yin, sir, please let Lord Kaido go. Quinn, you are my father. You are my real father. Please let me go. Shen Yuan held his chin and finally decided to point the knife at the ant. The ant had recovered a lot by now. Although she was seriously injured, she still had the strength to fight. I saw him slowly crawling up from the ground, and he was already in a critical condition. Little brat, I'm going to kill you. The soul realm is weakened. As soon as he finished speaking, a force even more powerful than before rushed towards Shen Yuan. The ant's eyes have turned slightly white, but her fists are still able to cover the armed color domineering. Can you still move? Shen Yuan smiled lightly and dodged the attack easily. Raise the knife in your hand and kill your opponent directly.